used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. Is an Aussie that has been dive-bombed by our version of the Magpie, which is much bigger.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome to Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm in for the great Mike Graham, who's taking a few very well-deserved days off. This is Morning Glory, and we'll be with you all the way until 10 a.m. Got lots and lots coming up. With me for the first hour, we're going to go through some of the papers, is the excellent Dr. Alan Mendoza from the Henry Jackson Society. Welcome, Alan. I'm haunted by the memory of last time I interviewed you when you came onto my show, when I introduced you as Dr. Henry Jackson from the Alan Mendoza Society.
If only there was an Alan Mendoza
Society. Well, it's only a matter of time, isn't it? Yeah. But welcome. Well, look, let's get going. We've got lots to get through. And you'll get an idea of some of the stories as we go through the papers. So first off, let's get cracking. A massive story on the front page of the Daily Telegraph today with enormous implications. It is the basic revelation that Donald Trump sent a sort of delegation of officials over from America because he's very worried about the state of freedom of speech in this country. He's particularly concerned, as many of us are, about the fate of poor Lucy Connolly, you know, the jailed for a tweet mum who's doing 31 months in jail for something that was nothing more than posting a few hurty words on Twitter. So she resides in jail still. Her appeal failed last week, so it looks like she will do pretty much most of those 31 months. Donald Trump, very worried about her fate, is apparently pressurising Keir Starmer to get her out of prison. But I think more to the point, this underlines the fact that America, the Donald Trump administration, is very worried about the state of freedom of speech in this country, as revealed by J.D. Vance the other month in Munich when he addressed the EU and said, all of you have got real problems with freedom of speech, particularly you in Britain. They get very worried, the Americans, about the way we treat anti-abortion campaigners, the campaign to outlaw abortion. Whatever you think about that, the Americans feel that we should give anti-abortion campaigners more of the joys of freedom of speech. They do get rather shut down. So your thoughts about this very interesting narrative that is going on now. America more and more worried about freedom of speech here in Britain. Keir Starmer loves to say that he's a great defender of freedom of speech. I say that anybody who presides over a justice system that locks people up for nasty words they put on social media is no defender of freedom of speech.
Well, Kev, you've got a lot of issues here, haven't you? I mean, and I think we start from the premise, of course, that if only it would be applied across the board, you might have some consistency, and then the government could stand on the idea, well, we're being fair across the board. But we know that week in, week out, there are people in this country who are allowed, not on social media, but in real life, Kev, real life. They're allowed to hate this country, they're allowed to hate minorities in this country, they're allowed to shout for all kinds of pro-terrorist slogans on the streets of Britain, and nothing happens to them. The police stand by, watch them say these things, and yet at the same time, you say something a bit naughty on social media and you're carted away, and police come and visit you, and you may get arrested and sent to jail. So I think that the real problem here is one of consistency. You've got to decide what you are. Are you a country where you are indeed going to look at speech and define, you know, what it is? Or are you a country that's entirely free speech? Now, I do subscribe to the latter. I think we should be, you know, saying that if people are not inciting violence, then it ought to be a case where you do go along this path. And in Lucy Connolly's case, it is a bit of a complicated one because she sort of did incite violence, but she recognised her problem very quickly and she took her tweet down, or whatever it was, very quickly down. She showed remorse straight away. Should she have had a jail sentence for that? I didn't think so, given that real crimes in this country get suspended sentences and things like that. So there's a problem here of sentencing as well and what's going on. So this case causes multiple issues. It creates issues of two-tier policing and two-tier justice. It suggests that we have different sentencing rules for crimes like burglary or mugging versus saying some things online, and of course it then raises the question of what we might be thinking as a country about various aspects of policing and what we should be saying. And I think the US is right to point this out, and the government has not got a handle on what it's doing in this area.
Exactly right. And I just feel that we've got to get our act together in this country.
Exactly.
And we have to make a decision about what we're going to do about people who the authorities at least feel are posting problematical tweets or posts on Facebook or Instagram, because I don't think they should be remotely considered for prison in any circumstances. Nobody should be going to jail for what they post on Twitter or Facebook, except in circumstances that I can barely imagine. Now, over in America, I remember watching Joe Rogan's podcast a few months back, and he sort of summed it up. I mean, in America, their jaws are dropping. And Joe Rogan summed it up. I mean, he said, you know, in his inimitable style, he said something like, he goes, man, you've seen what they're doing over in England, as they always call it. In England. He said, they're locking people up for effing tweets. That is wild. And if you think about it, it is. You know, we've been sucked into this, you know, almost sleepwalking into this syndrome where we now have a Prime Minister and a government that preside over a justice system that is fully prepared to lock people up for hurty words on social media. We have to think about that. And I think we have to start thinking, no, we don't send people to jail for tweets. And as I say, any Prime Minister who stands there, oh, freedom of speech is so important. Not if you're locking people up for tweets. That means freedom of speech is not important to you, Starmer. It means you're the enemy of freedom of speech. And by the way, if we're going to talk about Lucy Connolly's case, how can it be She's hundreds of miles away in Northampton. She saw red. She lost her temper.
Yeah,
she'd lost she's lost her own kid in tragic circumstances a year before. She was empathising with those 3 poor mums who lost their kids in the dance hall slaughter, and she went over the top. She apologised. She took it down. So she got 31 months. Why did she get 31 months for posting those hurty words hundreds of miles away? And by the way, I totally reject the notion that anyone was incited to violence.
Well, that's the question, isn't it? That's the question.
But why is she getting 31 months when people who were actually in the riots, who were actually caught throwing bricks at coppers or trying to set fire to mosques or asylum seeker hotels, they got less than her? How can that be?
Well, okay, that comes to this madness of what on earth's going on here in terms of the sentencing guidelines and how this is working in this country. It makes no sense. Many people, let's just take away from the riots for a second, many people who commit violent crimes in this country, Kev, get no sentences or suspended sentences in that sort of way, right? So how is it possible that somebody, as you've rightly pointed out, miles away from the scene of a crime, she said something stupid in my view, but did she actually incite anyone? I mean, at the end of the day, I don't mean this in any disrespectful way. She's a nobody. Okay, it's not as if a political leader had said those words, in which case you might very well say that's very dangerous. So you've got to take context into account, don't you, as to who she was, how this kind of plays into account. So why is she getting 31 months when actual rioters were getting less, when people who commit violent crimes in this country are getting less? And you have to say, this is clearly an attempt, isn't it, to scare people into conforming, right, into not saying that, you know, what they might believe in this sort of way. And again, part of the problem with that whole Southport, you know, purpose was that people did not have information. The police sat on things or were sat upon by the government saying you can't reveal what's actually happened, and that created a vacuum that was filled by disinformation.
Yeah, and ultimately the Prime Minister made the decision that although the authorities knew full well that Axel Rudakapana was clearly, if not a terrorist influenced by terrorism, when they raided his house the day of that terrible murder, those terrible murders, they found a training book by Al-Qaeda, and also they found enough ricin poison to kill thousands of people. So there was a terrorist connection. The government was busy denying that he was in any way an illegal immigrant or migrant or anything like asylum seeker. Well, technically that was true, but they did try to say he was a lad from Cardiff, a Welsh lad who'd moved north. You know, he wasn't really. His parents were indeed immigrants, migrants who came in from Rwanda. A sort of demographic situation that very much influenced his thinking, we came to discover. So we were not given the correct information. It was suppressed by the authorities, by the police, by the Crown Prosecution Service, and by the Prime Minister. Make no mistake. Now, we need to talk briefly, if we can, Alan, also about and I've covered this story before, but it's worth mentioning since it crops up today on page 25 of the Daily Mail. And this is the appeal court judge, Lord Justice Holroyd, who so unequivocally refused to reduce Lucy Connolly's sentence. He said, utterly absurdly, there can be no argument whatsoever that Lucy Connolly's sentence is, and I quote, manifestly excessive. Well, Lord Justice Holroyd, your lordship, I'm afraid there can be all sorts of arguments. In fact, it is quite patently clear that her sentence is manifestly excessive, hence the ongoing row. Anyway, while he refused point blank to reduce Lucy Connolly's sentence, Lucy Connolly, a middle-class mum who before her fall from grace had not so much ever had a speeding ticket in her life. She's the wife of a Tory councillor, Raymond Connolly, very nice man. I had him on my show last week, heartbroken, devastated, doing his best to bring up their 12-year-old daughter alone. Anyway, he didn't reduce her sentence, and she can, obviously, folks, be no danger to society whatsoever. But as the Mail points out, and I can add to this, that he was much more lenient when it came to Lord Nazir Ahmed. He's a former Labour lord. In fact, he probably still is a lord. He was convicted in January 2022 of sexually abusing 2 children in the 1970s. He was originally sentenced to 5 years and 6 months in prison. Lord Justice Holroyd, one of 3 appeal court judges, felt that sentence was too severe and reduced it to 2 years and 6 months, effectively releasing Lord Nazir, a convicted paedophile. Also, this is what I can add to this story. I researched this last week. This is our friend Lord Justice Holroyd, a guy called Anthony Marsh, a paedophile with HIV, who revelled in having unprotected sex with underage boys. He had his life sentence quashed by Lord Justice Holroyd. Marsh's sentence was replaced with a 12-year term and an additional 2 years on extended licence. That was our friend Lord Justice Holroyd, much more lenient with a paedophile with HIV who liked to infect young underage boys. No, doesn't need to be doing life. Let's reduce that sentence to 12 years. Alan McCurry in 2017, a former army sergeant convicted of raping a young girl and committing sex attacks on another, had his jail term reduced by 1 year by the Court of Appeal, a panel which included, you guessed it, Lord Justice Holroyd. Now we've got Matthew Folder, 2018, a Cambridge graduate and one of Britain's most prolific paedophiles ever. He had his 32-year prison sentence reduced to 25 years by the Court of Appeal, which included Lord Justice Holroyd. The court accepted the submission that the original sentence, 32 years for one of our worst ever paedophiles, was, and you're going to love this phrase, it was manifestly excessive. That, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Lord Justice Holroyd, a man didn't even consider taking a second off Lucy Connolly's sentence, but on that long list of paedophiles, rapists and sex fiends, he couldn't wait to be lenient with them. Unbelievable.
Don't know what to make of that beyond the obvious. I think you've stated the case so eloquently, Kev. There's really nothing to say at that point in time. But again, it does make you wonder what on earth is going on in the judicial system at the moment. I think, you know, Britain, its policing and justice system used to be seen, Kev, even comparatively recently, as a landmark system for the world, and now it seems to be going in entirely the wrong direction. Can you really say that anyone's looking at British justice, British policing today and going, that's the model we want to follow?
Well, you know, obviously the charge is 2-tier policing, 2-tier justice. I mean, I say, if only it was only 2 tiers. Our justice system is functioning along, you know, a series, a bemusing series of levels. I mean, nothing is ever judged in the way it should be, which is exactly. All individuals, all cases are treated exactly the same regardless of race, creed or colour. But that is not what's happening, is it? No,
and don't forget, sitting on top of that is the government's plan to basically cut all the sentences anyway, so, you know, you'll serve only under half your time. So, in reality, what is going on here?
Yeah, well, I think it's worse than that because, of course, the new sentencing review has said that for good behaviour, traditionally you got half your time off, they're going to take that to 2/3 of the time.
It's incredible.
And also, when you think about Lucy Connolly, it always comes back to Lucy Connolly, and well, it should. You know, as you've just said, Alan, this new sentencing review is going to mean rapists and murderers will be let out incredibly early. They'll be doing, you know, rapists will be doing 18 months and things like that. And is the punishment fitting the crime there? It's not. I mean, that's what we've got now. The sentencing review is really a charter for crime. You know, it's a sort of promise that pretty much you can break the law and, you know, not too much will happen to you. So it's not a good situation, is it? Let's go to a break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about what's been going on overnight. Russia has launched the biggest ever attack on Ukraine. With massive drone attacks, 12 people killed, many injured, and Donald Trump has finally lost his temper with Vladimir Putin. We'll talk about that next. Stay where you are.
He is an internationalist. He's a globalist. That's why he's giving the Chagos Islands back. That's his view. It's decolonisation. That's his world view. We can't deny any of this anymore. And on every policy, whatever you look at, he's just simply getting on with it. He is very pro-Europe. He wanted to take us back into Europe. And what we've seen there very recently, as you've just pointed out, is that we're moving closer to Europe.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I am with Dr. Alan Mendoza from the Henry Jackson Society. He's sitting in with me until 7 o'clock. He's gone the extra mile. Blimey, I mean, it's a bank holiday. What are we doing up now?
No idea. No idea.
I'm in a daze. Mike does this every day. Respect, you know. I used to do weekend breakfast, so I'm not a complete stranger to this timing, but it sort of plunges you into a different kind of world. It really does, getting up at 3:30 in the morning. One of life's great joys, I can tell you that. But it's good to be here with you now, Alan. It's good to be with all of you. Now we've got through the shock of waking up quite so early on a bank holiday. Let's talk about this story. It's on the front page of the Guardian. I don't really have to hold this up, but I'm going to anyway. It's that Kiev condemns American silence after Russia carries out the largest air attack of the conflict. They launched apparently 298 drones and 69 missiles in multiple waves across the country. The silence of America, the silence of others in the world only encourages Putin, said Zelensky. Every such terrorist Russian strike is reason enough for new sanctions against Russia. Now, at that point, when the papers were going to press, there was indeed, and we're looking at the attacks now. It's pretty shocking, actually. 12 people dead, as I say, at least, and I think hundreds injured. But at the point when this was happening, and soon after this, when the papers went to bed, as we say in the newspaper industry, there was indeed an American silence. But since then, Trump, in his inimitable style, has broken that silence. Here he is.
Yeah, I'll give you an update. I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all.
Yeah, he said he's gone absolutely crazy. I think he posted that on Truth Social. So it looks like he's snapping now with Putin. Putin has been sort of stringing him along with these sort of, oh, yes, peace talks. Yes, we'll talk about a ceasefire. And Donald always reports back. I mean, whatever you think about Donald Trump, he governs transparently. You know, he governs basically on the television. You are in there as his thought processes unfold. And he keeps saying, yeah, I've just spoken 2 hours with Putin. It went very well. And then the next thing you know, Russia unleashes another attack on Ukraine. Well, it looks as if Trump's had enough of that. He's snapped, hasn't he?
Has he? I mean, has he, though, Kev? That, I mean, really, you know, here's a...
Probably not.
Well, here's the question. The problem is that you've seen numerous times this sort of pattern repeating itself over the course of the last few weeks. They have a lovely conversation, they're best mates, then, of course, Putin continues the war, which he's always been wanting to do anyway, and Trump goes, oh, something's not right. He said something different to me in the phone call. And what I don't understand is why he hasn't, at this point in time, gone, here's an absolute joke. You are, you know, literally taking the mickey out of me. I'm the one now looking like the idiot because I've gone out on a limb saying you're, you know, decent, you want peace, and you clearly don't want peace. I've given you every opportunity to have peace, and you don't want it. So what point, Kev, is Donald Trump going to actually say, enough's enough? I'm now going to punish you. To me, it's mystifying because he's a very smart man who normally, in any kind of deal situation, would go, these people are, you know, are not ready for a deal. They're trying to get too much from me or from you. I'm leaving. This sort of discussion. Yet here he persists. Now, I know he wants peace, but you can't continually want peace and then not deliver some shock to the party that continues being the aggressor.
He was asked in that sort of airport press conference, you know, are you considering more sanctions? And he said, yeah, absolutely, 100%, you know. But the point is, I mean, sanctions on Russia, you know, it's a bit like, you know, telling the drowning man who's 6 foot under the sea, we're just going to put 10 more gallons of water on top of you. They're still going to die. You know what I mean? So sanctions on Russia, I don't think will have any particular effect. So what do you think what do you think Trump should do?
Well, it won't be sanctions on Russia per se. It'll be sanctions on the countries who are buying oil from Russia, and that will make a difference. Actually, look, what Putin's managed to do is evade sanctions essentially, because he's selling oil to China and India and countries like that. Now, what Trump will do with the next, should he do the sanctions, is to stop that escape route. That's going to totally destroy the Russian economy, and at that point, Putin starts looking like a loser rather than a winner. Because right now he's selling stuff still, he's got the economy still working, and he's, you know, winning on the ground, slowly, but he's winning on the ground. That will transform the situation. So if you really want peace in Ukraine, that's what you have to do. Force Putin into agreeing an end to the conflict.
Yeah, and Putin's obviously got some kind of game plan. It does seem to be to, shall we say, gently wind Donald Trump up, sort of suck him in and then blow him out. I mean, God knows what's going on, but it's not looking good at the moment. Certainly for peace. For those of you who want peace in Ukraine, I suppose that's all of us. You know, I wouldn't start hanging out the bunting yet. Let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to go back a big domestic story all over the front page of the Daily Mail, quite rightly. The shocking story of the NHS fat cats. There's now the first ever NHS rich list, apparently. Just quickly to put you in the picture before we go to break, there are 1,700 executives, middle management executives on £100,000 or more. 512 executives at the middle management. I say executives, the middle managers. 512 of these people, they're not medically qualified, by the way, they're just pen pushers. They're on more than the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister gets £172,000 a year, and there are 300 fat cats at the NHS on more than 200,000, and there are many on more than 300,000 and more. So, you know, I don't want to hear people going, the NHS doesn't get enough money. Give the NHS more money. No, get rid of some of these middle managers on £300,000 a year that we don't need. How about that? Start that. How about you get rid of your £40 million worth of diversity officers, 800 of them, 800 diversity officers. Get rid of them. You know, don't come to us moaning about not having enough money when you waste it on hundreds of middle managers who are earning hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. It's a disgrace. We'll talk about that next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just reaching for my Daily Mail here. I know we're going to flash this up anyway, but this is their front page. It is Scandal of Fat Cats on first ever NHS Rich List. I'm still with Dr. Alan Mendoza from the Henry Jackson Society. Well, this is something, Alan, that we always known has been going on, you know, the kind of grotesque number of middle managers at the NHS who earn huge amounts of money for doing jobs that none of us can quite understand. You know, this is pretty bad. 300 health bosses are now getting packages worth over £200,000 a year. We've got 512 managers are on more than the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister gets £172,153, so 512 more than that, 300 packages of more than 200, and 1,700 get more than 100,000. So frankly, this is obscene. This is obscene. This organiser, oh, give us more money, we're trying to heal the sick. You're not principally trying to heal the sick, are you? You're principally all got your noses in the trough. Something's got to be done about this. This is Wes Streeting speaking to NHS providers earlier.
Improving services for patients should be rewarded, and the quid pro quo is that there will be no more rewards for failure. The work you do couldn't be more serious. When you get it right, lives are saved. When you don't, the consequences can be tragic. If performance dips, I reserve the right to take those freedoms away. And for those judged to be persistently failing, we will act, going from zero consequences for failure to zero tolerance.
Well, here's the thing, Alan. Essentially, all of these middle managers, all of the NHS, if you take the picture in its entirety, They are failing. It is failing. This is a failing organisation. So all of these people on £100,000, £200,000, £300,000 a year buy West Streeting's totem that he just put out there. They should be getting their collar felt. They should be going, you know, I won't put up with failure. Well, they're getting paid, rewarded at a very high level for failure. And, you know, West Streeting, the latest of the long list of health secretaries to come in and say, it's broken, it needs, you know, root and branch reform from top to bottom. And he's just the latest one, loads and loads of words, nothing happening. You know, if you want to save money for a kick-off, take it away from these fat cat middle managers, from all the diversity officers, and here's an idea: hire some more doctors, hire some more nurses. By all means, give these militant doctors and nurses pay rises, but fund it from the people you're paying 300 grand a year to by getting rid of them.
Sadly, it's just a drop in the ocean, though, Kev. No, this is the reality. Look,
it's just a start. It's a thought,
no, but I know. But if you think about it, the NHS budget is absolutely colossal and growing on a colossal level every year. The problem with the NHS,
180 billion to 200.
It's extraordinary.
Billion a
year,
so
yeah, okay, we can rightly point out this is madness. This sort of setup here, it's madness in a phrase where people are not being held to account. Look, am I against necessarily people being paid decent amounts to do a really good job? No. But they're not doing a really good job. That's the problem, isn't it? And West Streeting's point there is correct in the sense that it's about time people were accountable. I cannot remember a last time someone in the NHS was sacked. Can you? I can't remember it.
No.
Who gets sacked? They don't get sacked. They're never held to account. They keep on pocketing the money. They get bonus schemes for failure. It makes no sense at all. But the NHS's problems are bigger than this. The whole system is, you know, kind of not fit for purpose for the 21st century. It was a system designed for the 1940s. It's now, you know, nearly 100 years later. We've got to get with the programme and understand that this is a system that nobody in the world has copied, Kev. It's wonder of the world. Nobody wants it. Why? Because they realise it's madness to be operating the system in this way in 2025.
It doesn't work,
it doesn't work. Everyone knows it doesn't work. Everyone loves the idea. We all love the idea. It's a brilliant idea, but so was communism. A brilliant idea didn't work in practice. And the NHS is communism in practice in a real life situation. And we've got to get with the programme and understand if we want better health outcomes for the people of this country, we have to look at how that system works from top to bottom and start imagining the unimaginable in that way.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. What was it? They said that the Great Britain has become the Great Britain is a health service with the country attached to it.
Well, that is what's happening
That's basically it. Well, let's move on to something far more important. It was Gary Lineker's last ever match of the day yesterday. Well, look, here he is signing off with his witty words. Take it away, Gary.
Thank you. I suspect our paths will cross again very shortly. Let me take this opportunity to thank all of the other pundits that I've had the pleasure of working with over the last 25 years. You've made my job so much easier. Also, a huge thank you to those you don't see at home. The work that goes into making this iconic show. It's been an absolute privilege to have hosted Match of the Day for a quarter of a century. It's been utterly joyous. I'd like to wish Gabby, Mark and Kelly all the very best when they sit in this chair. The programme is in the best of hands. And my final thank you goes to all of you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all your love and support over the years.
Yeah, he began the show by saying it wasn't meant to end like this. Very, very funny. And what he actually said was we thought we might be watching teams tussling for the top place, but actually all we've got to be interested in is who makes the Champions League in Europe next season. So it wasn't meant to end like this. Well, it wasn't meant to end like this. And a lot of people think that Gary Lineker should not even have been given the privilege of hosting that final show. And while he does all all that smiley, semi-teary, oh, what a wonderful 26 years it's been. I always say about him, I listen to him talk about football till the cows come home. He knows his stuff about football, obviously. He's a great book. I mean, I'm a big football fan. He's a great football presenter. And he's totally entitled to his personal views. But his tendency or his insistence on embarrassing his employer, the BBC, with these tweets about Gaza, which frankly were the sort of thing that 13-year-old school kids post, you know, to signal their virtual, oh yeah, teacher says this is a good idea. I mean, you know, he doesn't really know anything about what he's talking about. So by all means, have your own opinions, but why did you embarrass your employer, the BBC? Why did you quite clearly, Gary, come to the point where you enjoyed doing this? You enjoyed teasing them, getting yourself in the papers, and then one day it all went too far, didn't it? That was last week, beginning of last week, when he shared this Instagram post, which was supposed to be a history of Zionism. It was in fact a disgustingly anti-Semitic post by a group called the Palestine Lobby, in which it used to depict Jews the famous Nazi imagery, a rat, a rodent. Gary Lineker said after that, I'm really, really sorry. I had no idea that the Nazis used rats to depict Jews. I didn't realise it was part of Nazi imagery. This was 2 days after he gave an interview to the Daily Telegraph saying it's very important to know your history. Now, this is also a guy who said that if you don't speak up about Gaza, your silence makes you complicit in the horror. Well, what did he say about October the 7th after that happened? I know, he was totally silent. So does that make him complicit in the horror of October the 7th? So this guy, I don't believe him that he didn't know about Nazi imagery, about the rats. So I think he's lying there. And while we do all this hearts and flowers, 26 years, let's not forget the magnitude of the mess this guy put himself in. The hole he dug for himself after 26 years, great football presenter, great sports presenter, he is leaving under an anti-Semitic cloud. And that's sad and disgraceful, and we should make more of it, though. He tweeted, or he shared a post that was disgustingly anti-Semitic, pleaded ignorant. I don't believe him. What a shame that after 26 years he's leaving the BBC in these circumstances.
Well, Kev, it's a salutary example of somebody who knew a lot about one thing, i.e. football, and then knew nothing about things he then strayed into for personal interest or for, you know, sort of excitement level into other areas. I mean, Gary Lineker's knowledge of international relations appears to be less than zero. If you look at the content he puts it, you quite rightly put it, it's like a 13-year-old kid doing it. It'd be like my musings on football, okay? Who cares? And nobody cares about Gary Lineker's musings in this way. But when he strays into anti-Semitism, whether deliberate or not, I'm afraid we all care, because he's in a position of power, given the millions of people who his primary focus, i.e. football, has brought him into contact with, and he's able to influence those people with what he's posting. So yeah, absolutely, he needs to be held to account for that kind of low level of behaviour that he's exhibited. And it is, of course, sad that a career like that's ended in this way, but he'll always now be remembered for his idiocy and stupidity and malevolence in moving into a political sphere when he had no need to do it. Yeah. He had no need to get into this. He ruined his own career by doing it. There was no purpose in his, you know, kind of getting into that. People loved him for his football commentary, and he's now sullied it all. I think that's a lesson to everyone in this area, celebrities all round, who are known for one thing, say entertainment or sport or this sort of thing, and decide to dabble in politics. Stay in your lane is the phrase that needs to be used here. Stay in your lane, because if you get it wrong, the consequences for your career will be devastating.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, he's perfectly entitled to his opinions, no matter how ill-informed he is.
Yeah, he can do that.
But what I never understood about him is what his sort of apparent visceral need to embarrass his employers, who are paying him £1.4 million a year. You know, why did he get off on this? Why did he keep doing it? Very strange. And as I say, I'm not having it that he's a great humanitarian and he cares so much for the fate of people in the Middle East, because whilst he seems to care very much for the Palestinians, for the Gazans. He didn't seem to care at all about the 1,200 Jews who were slaughtered in most horrific genocide that the Jews have suffered since the Holocaust. He didn't say a word about that.
But Kev, I agree, of course, but it's more than that. Who cares about Gary Lineker's views on international relations? This is utterly irrelevant. He's not an expert in this area. He's not.
I think you can say that.
It is about, if he made his views on ballet, nobody would care either. Yeah. The point is, he abused his platform. He abused that platform with millions of people. He did indeed embarrass his employer, who had given him that platform. Everything he had achieved was because of the BBC. He was a nobody in the sense of, yes, he had been a famous footballer, but he hadn't. The Match of the Day platform gave him that global reach, that millions of people, and he abused that with his ill-informed and disgraceful views on a subject he knew nothing about. That's what this, that's what will be the stain on him forever now.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about it, of course. I mean, he's got a lot of money. He's been earning a great deal, and he's set up his own podcast company, and all the lefties produce their podcast through him, like Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart. Quite why anybody would want to listen to them getting everything wrong, I don't really know. But of course, our thoughts and prayers are with Rory Stewart, who's a fantastic prediction that Kamala Harris would walk it in the American presidential election. Can't possibly lose. Will never be forgotten. Why would you want to listen? This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But anyway, he produces, his company, Gary Lineker, produces all these lefty podcasts, plus his own, I think is called The Rest is Football. What's his name? Campbell's is The Rest is Politics. He's got all this brand, he's got all these podcasts, so don't worry about him, not that we would. Money-wise, and they say that other broadcasters are trying to secure his talent, so maybe he'll go to ITV or Sky, who knows.
I think Al Jazeera probably after.
Al Jazeera, I've heard that before. He's off to his spiritual home. Don't forget, he took Qatari money during the last World Cup. He was very happy to take Arab money, so he's a man of many moods. Anyway, bye-bye, Gary. It hasn't been fun. Right, when we come back, let's talk about Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister. She's made it very, very clear. She said, I do not want to be Prime Minister. I do not want to lead the Labour Party. Those two statements, when she says that, what she's doing technically in the world of politics, there's a technical name for it. It's lying. She is lying. She does want to be a Labour Prime Minister. She does want to be the Labour leader. So it's all going on at number 10 Downing Street. Backstreet fighting doesn't even begin to cover it. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
One of the most stupid things just after the election, suddenly having agreement with the unions for settling their issues. Now, I'm quite good to get an agreement, but what was the quid pro quo? What do I get back? And that was a perfect opportunity to say, we'll agree to your levels. By the way, we want to change some of the employment issues, as we've seen certainly with some of the railway companies, to actually bring them up to date. Instead, they just actually gave that money away and got nothing back for it. And then bringing in those areas of taxation which are painful to those people who can least afford it.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Dr. Alan Mendoza, Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society. Well, Alan, it's all going on at number 10 Downing Street. The Prime Minister has been forced into a sort of humiliating U-turn on benefits generally, but specifically the winter fuel allowance, which in the Commons last night he said we will be doing something about it at the next fiscal event. Why doesn't he speak English? You know, you're speaking to the people. I think he means the budget, which will be October, therefore a little late to do anything about winter fuel. The only U-turn he can do, if he wants to U-turn on the winter fuel allowance and he wants to bring it back to what it was, that was every single pensioner in the country got £300 to pay for their fuel through the cold months. No questions asked, no means test, nothing. So if he's U-turning, that's what he has to reinstate. If, as he indicated, it's still going to be, well, we just might be a little less draconian on our new means testing system, that is not U-turning.
Well, no, it's a completely different policy in terms of his setup. But clearly he's been bounced into it, as we know, by his angry backbenchers and by people who voted repeatedly to say, this is not why we elected you, what are you doing? But, as you say, either you U-turn or you don't U-turn. A half or a quarter U-turn isn't really a U-turn, is it? It's a, we're going to veer off in a slightly different direction. So I don't think he's going to get credit for that, is he, Kev? I mean, the reality is, I'm not sure he'll get credit even if he does U-turn. The damage has been done in this regard. And the other question that's been left unsaid in all this is, how is the money going to be found to pay for it?
Well, I just don't think that anything this guy says, you really have to be suspicious of. He's just headline hunting all the time. Now, who is leading the charge against Starmer and indeed Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, the in danger, the current Chancellor? From the left, they're saying, you know, this isn't Labour. We shouldn't be the party that axed the winter fuel allowance. That should be the Tories. You know, generally on benefits, the big benefit cuts that Rachel Reeves wants, you know, the left of the party are going, but this isn't Labour. And that charge is being led by Angela Rayner in a sort of conspiracy that people believe is her making a move for the number one job, for the top job. Now, she did the media rounds yesterday, Laura Kunsberg, Sky News, and was asked this question, do you want to be Prime Minister? Here she is responding.
Do you rule out running for leader one day?
I do not want to run for leader of the Labour Party.
Do you rule it out?
I rule it out. I'm absolutely focused on working with the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. Look, this is the honour of my life, to do the job I'm doing, to represent my constituents in Ashton-under-Lyne, and to finally have an opportunity to build the council houses we need, to put money in working people's pockets.
So she's definitely going for it then.
Well, I mean, come on. Look, you know, no politician in that position is going to say, I'm going to challenge the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
We all know that.
Yeah.
Come on, the positioning's
I've got his number. I'm going to get rid of Starmer.
The positioning's all there. It's all, people suspect that leaks may have come out from her, sort of supporters about this whole sort of, kind of U-turn business anyway. Look, in reality, I think she is quite an attractive figure for that side of the party. They see her as somebody who is authentic and somebody who could, sort of speak a different language to the country. I'm not sure the country would enjoy that, by the way, but nonetheless, politicians have made bad choices before, and it seems obvious that she is set up in that way. Now, it is very difficult to get rid of a sitting Labour Prime Minister. It's not like the Conservatives, where they can get rid of them every 2 minutes. It's a very difficult thing to do. So, rather sensibly, Angela Rayner's going, not interested in going, but I guarantee you, if there was a vacancy, the chance of her putting her name in the ring, at least, is 100%.
Trust me, folks, she's on manoeuvres. Don't you worry about that. She's not the only one. We're streeting too. A lot of people in that Labour cabinet, the higher echelons of the Labour Party, are now circling like vultures Focusing like vultures. Sama, you're probably right, Alan. He'll probably manage to survive.
Very difficult to get rid of him. Yep.
But he is a lot weaker than he should be at this stage, and this is due to a series of self-harming mistakes. Most of his mistakes he didn't have to do. He didn't have to give the Chagos Islands away, and yet he's done it. He didn't have to cut the winter fuel allowance, but he did it. These are unnecessary mistakes. Don't harm yourself in politics. That's what he's doing, and people like Angela Rayner sense blood. They really do. But let's move on to the other party in trouble. That is, of course, the Tories. Kemi Badenoch, again on the media rounds Sunday morning, she said that people underestimate her. Let's have a look.
Is it really annoying to you that people keep talking about the return of Boris Johnson?
Do you know what, Trevor? People always have been underestimating me since I was 16 years old, and I came, back to the UK with £100, my dad's last £100, working at McDonald's to look after myself. Look where I am now. There are lots of people...
12 points adrift in the polls, that's where you are.
No, I'm leader of the Conservative Party after a historic defeat.
I don't want to be nasty to Kemi. I know she's doing her best, but when she says people have always underestimated me, I'm beginning to think, due to her performance so far as Tory leader, that people have always underestimated Kemi Badenoch with good reason.
Well, I think that's cruel.
She's doing a terrible job.
No, look, I think we spoke about Angela Rayner a moment ago. Actually, Kemi Badenoch's got a great life story, just like Angela Rayner.
Yeah, I'm not denying
and she's
that.
right to say that people have underestimated her. You wouldn't have thought, say, 10 years ago, that Kemi Badenoch was going to be leader of the Conservative Party, right? She was not the natural choice, if you think about 10 years ago.
I get that.
And she has risen to that position through determination and through conviction in that sort of way. And I think that we are living in an era where she is being, people demand immediate results. Actually, she's being thoughtful. She is not rushing to make stupid policy moves. And I think in the fullness of the time, people will, again, if they're making decisions now, will have underestimated her, looking at where she will end up on this.
Let's see. It's not looking good so far, but early days, I suppose. But those of you who support the Tories, I'd be worried about Kemi Badenoch. I really would. I mean, again, I'm not trying to massively rain on her parade. It just seems that she hasn't quite got the stuff. But maybe Alan's right and maybe I'm wrong. I hope for her. Well, look, should we talk a little bit about... She mentioned Boris Johnson there. And it was announced over the weekend. I mean, this isn't in the papers today. It was more yesterday. He's had another kid with Carrie. So there's 4 kids with Carrie.
Yes.
Yeah, 3 with a former wife. And another kid with an affair. So that's 9 that we know of. And there's supposed to be this other one around. Exactly how many more kids do you think this guy's going to have?
No idea. As long as I'm guessing, as long as there's a lead in his pencil, Boris will intend to use it. I think he'll intend to use it. I mean, 9 at least already. He's rivaling Elon Musk here, isn't he? In terms of numbers.
What is it about? It's all these rock stars like Mick Jagger and Eric Clapton. Why do these guys go around having 10 kids? Why do they do this? I mean, he is, sort of politics' answer to rock stardom, isn't he?
Well, it's obvious. Take a look at him.
It is. It's some sort.
Kev, I must propagate. The world must be full of Borises.
Exactly. Incredibly virile. I mean, it is odd, isn't it?
Well, on the one hand, you might say it's odd, but on the other hand, look, he takes a view, I think, that I've got money, I can afford children, children are a good thing, I love children, let's have more children, the children be like me, everything will be better. I mean, it's a sort of principle in that class, isn't it?
It's funny. Now, listen, I've just got to quickly get this one in before we finish this hour, Alan. Last week, of course, the government announced that they are considering chemical castration, voluntary at this moment, for sex offenders. If they're jailed, they'll let them out if they take these various drugs to quell their nefarious urges and all that. Chemical castration, I don't think it's ever going to happen. I think it's just a bit of headline hunting, and that's not the point. Anyway, probation officers, this is page 11 of the Daily Telegraph today. Probation officers with a view to this new system have been told not to upset paedophiles by using the term chemical castration. So how are you going to moot it to them then?
I can't even imagine what that conversation looks like, Kev. Can you imagine? We're going to... we need an intervention of some kind that's going to control your urges or something along those lines. It's bizarre. But if you can't say the words, how do we deal with this?
One other thing I forgot when we were talking about the NHS, we'll bring this up later in the show. 2 biological men a day are given trans surgery on the NHS. That's £20 million a year. Taxpayers' money feminising genital surgery for biological men. We'll talk about that later on the show. In the meantime, what a pleasure it has been to spend this hour with Dr. Alan Mendoza from the Henry Jackson Society. Thank you, Alan. And much still to come when we come back. Stay tuned.
How much, ladies and gentlemen, are fish and chips where you come from? We'll go to Jason in Crewe.
Jason from Crewe, fish, chips and peas, £7.50. It's the best chippy in England.
Janice in Leeds, go.
Regarding fish and chips, in Leeds it's between £9.50 and £12.75.
Whitby, how much is fish and chips?
3 of us, fish, chips, peas, I think one of us curry sauce, 3 cans of pop, just short of 70 quid.
£70? That's 23 quid a head, man. Even my maths does that. Very quickly, a voice note. Campbell in Scotland, go.
Up here in Banff in the northeast of Scotland, we can get a fillet and a half of haddock with a regular chips for £8 and 10 pence, and it's by far and away one of the best chippies I've ever had.
Kenneth in Surrey, fish and chips, go.
Fish and chips in Ascot, about half a mile from where you used to live, will cost you £12 and 60 pence. Great show. Keep up the good work.
That's why I moved, because you were living there. When was the last time you had fish and chips?
Couple of weeks ago.
How much? Where'd you get it from?
I think it was about 40 quid. It was in the Ivy.
Honestly, you really are. For any of you who think he's a man of the people, I nearly said you're a...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is the second hour of Morning Glory. I am in for Mike Graham. The great Mike Graham is having a few days well-earned rest. He'll be back on Wednesday, so you have to put up with me tomorrow as well. We're trying to do our best. We're just doing a show like Mike's. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's a great show. An honour to present it. So what have we got coming up this hour? In a little while, half an hour or so, I'm going to be talking to Kinsey Schofield about the latest machinations, goings-on Planet Meghan. Lots to talk about there. It looks like Harry and Meghan have sort of appointed their own new royal court in Montecito, as if things are all going swimmingly. 11 people they've hired. They're all on about $100,000 each. Where's all the money coming from? What are they going to do? So we'll talk about this. Very interested too that the White House, Donald Trump effectively is now pressurising Keir Starmer to let Lucy Connolly go. That's the poor housewife who's jailed for a nasty tweet she put out during the Southport riots. 31 months, she wasn't even there. Also, we're going to talk about this fishing boat, British fishing boat, that has been intercepted, detained by the French. It's now been taken by the French because it was whelking without a license, apparently over there in the Channel somewhere. So they've seized this ship. And here's the thing, it's like, OK, you want to do that, but you're not very sharp about seizing migrants as they dawdle across your beaches to those small boats, and then you go over to Britain. You're not very hot on seizing them, but you can't wait to seize one of our trawler boats, can you? We'll talk about that with Ben Habib in just a little while. A little bit of warped values there. So much still to come in this hour. But first, let's go straight over to my next guest. That's Talk's brilliant international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel. Hi, morning. Well, look, first of all, this is a very difficult case to talk about, but we have to do it. This is the front page of yesterday's Mail on Sunday. The headline there is, I'm just showing it. For those of you who are just listening, this is the front page of yesterday's paper. And the headline says, MI5 probes Putin link to Starmer arson blitz. Now, we have to be very careful here for obvious reasons. 3 men have been arrested and charged with arson with a view to threatening life. And this was following 3 firebomb attacks on property and a car linked to the Prime Minister. This was his family home in Kentish Town in North London was firebombed. The damage was bad to the front door. It didn't burn the house, thank God. Also to a house in Islington, which he has a connection to, and a car down the same road as where he lives in Kentish Town. All firebombed a couple of weeks ago. There are now reports that MI5 is probing that these 3 guys, all of them male models from Eastern Europe, actually all born in Ukraine, but one of them seems to have become a Romanian. So you've got 3 young male models from Eastern Europe living in London who stand accused of launching these firebomb attacks on 2 properties and a car connected to the Prime Minister. In itself, extraordinary. Now MI5 probing a potential Russian link. Did Russia stage this? Did Putin somehow hire these 3 guys to bring these attacks about? That is the suggestion. That's what MI5 are looking into. But I can't remember, with all due caution that we have to exercise here legally, Isabel, I can't remember a Prime Minister of this country being caught up in a more bizarre story than this.
It really is an extraordinary story, and the reason that I think you and I want to talk about it is because whilst recognising that 3 young men have been charged, and we clearly can't go into the detail or speculate beyond the facts of the matter, this is what everybody in political circles is talking about. And if they're not, they should be. Something very, very strange has gone on here. And I wonder whether we'll ever know. And it's interesting, you showed the headline there in yesterday's Mail on Sunday about potential link to Russia. I mean, people might be wondering, well, why would Russia use the suspects here, those who are accused, and we don't know how they're going to plead, are Ukrainian. Why would Russia use Ukrainian people to carry out something like this? And the answer is perhaps in the way that Russian hybrid warfare works. This, you could argue, is a classic of this kind. An operation of this kind would be a classic Russian hybrid warfare operation, just to throw out some confusion. Let's unsettle leaders. Let's get everybody talking about whether this might be us. And let's make it look not too professional, just because we don't want it to look as if a state operator is behind it. That's the kind of way that Russian hybrid warfare works. And it's really interesting to note that there have been a similar spate of attacks in Germany In that case, they were not targeted against the leader of Germany, the German Chancellor. They weren't targeted against individuals. They were targeted against parcel depots. But again, the Russian link is being probed there. So truly murky and fascinating. I would add one other thing. Very, very few people know where Keir Starmer's properties are and know what car registration he has. I don't know that. I'm a political journalist. I've been around a while. I wouldn't even know how to find that information. I might be able to quite readily find one address beyond 10 Downing Street, but to have several addresses implies a very special level of knowledge. And that means there's someone very serious behind this, potentially a state operator, hence the MI5 probe, or somebody who knows them very well.
Yeah, and at some point, I understand why the Prime Minister can't talk about this at the moment, because it's sub judice. These three guys, these three male models who were charged last week, are all in custody and will appear in court. So the Prime Minister can't really talk about it now, but at some point I do feel he owes us some kind of transparency, some kind of explanation. We can't have a Prime Minister getting caught up in this kind of stuff and then it just... No, there's never any explanation and we just move on. We're going to need to know about what the hell has been going on here. And while we're at it, there are so many questions about this guy. I want to know, why really did he and we're told his family move into Lord Wahid Ali, Labour's Dr. Feelgood donors, massive penthouse Covent Garden apartment during the election campaign? Why really did they do this? Because Keir Starmer says, well, what it was, he said, well, it's my son. He was studying for his GCSEs and there was, so many press outside the house. We were besieged. Well, there are two things about this. First of all, he wouldn't be besieged. There might be the odd camera crew out there, the odd photographer, but leaders of the opposition in these circumstances, they're not besieged. They're not besieged, so I'm not buying that. And when he says that, well, we had to get out of there so that my kid could study for his GCSEs, we subsequently learned that at the time they were living in Lord Wahid Ali's apartment, the GCSEs were over. So that excuse doesn't stack up. There's so many aspects of this guy's life that seem to be mysterious, that he kind of covers up with half-truths. So there are things, this is our Prime Minister, and there seem to be things going on with him that I think at some point he owes us an explanation for. Don't you agree?
We're in an era where voters don't mind if their political leaders have unconventional domestic or private lives. I don't know about Keir Starmer's private life. He talks about his wife Victoria being his best friend, and that's all very nice. We don't see a lot of her, but that's her prerogative. Not all first ladies want to be part of the political front line. And most voters don't care. They don't care. But it becomes a problem if there's ever any situation where, for example, a leader can be blackmailed or where they're being hypocritical. Now, I don't think Starmer is being hypocritical because he doesn't pose with his family, he doesn't put them out there. But I do think that it just is all a little bit strange. There's something not quite right, is how it feels to me personally. And that's separate to this MI5 Russia probe. I suppose that if your arrangements are a little complicated, as they must be, if you're moving around, you're moving your children into apartments with very wealthy characters who are not part of your immediate family, that does open you up to perhaps being targeted by hostile players, whether they're state level or whatever that may be, and all politicians have to be very aware of that. Anyone in the public eye has to be aware of that.
Yes, it's an extraordinary situation that our Prime Minister finds himself in, and he can't talk about it now, but at some point he's going to have to. It may be entirely not his fault. It could be that the Russians...
I think that's very possible.
...have fitted him up. Maybe the Russians have, and as you say, it would be straight out of their playbook, but who knows? And we need to know at some point, but it isn't going to be just yet. That justice has to take its course first. Let's get you now, if we can, Isabel, on this extraordinary story on the front page of the Telegraph today. Trump pressurises PM over Connolly. Apparently Donald Trump and the White House are putting great pressure on Starmer to say, look, you believe in freedom of speech, you better release Lucy Connolly, the mum who's doing 31 months for posting a hurty word tweet on X. Why don't you release him now? And also we learn that Trump sent a delegation of officials over here to investigate the way the British deal with anti-abortion campaigners. They believe that is very dangerous for freedom of speech here and freedom of expression here as well. So there's this ongoing kind of cultural clash between America's visceral belief in freedom of expression and freedom of speech and Keir Starmer's warped version of it, where he thinks he's able to say, I believe in freedom of speech, whilst locking people up for what they tweet. 12 people are in jail for what they tweeted over the summer riots. Any leader who locks people up for what they put on social media, in my view, is no champion of freedom of speech.
This is so embarrassing, isn't it? You know, traditionally, British prime ministers go to places like China, they go to the Middle East, and they're under massive pressure, usually from the left, to give during those high-level meetings, to deliver a lecture about human rights, you know, and these are usually meetings with leaders of countries to which, you know, many British leaders feel that we're superior in some way. Now, how the tables have turned. We now have other countries, the most powerful country in the world, having to deliver our leaders a little rebuke about human rights. Effectively, that's what we're talking about here. Freedom of speech, fundamental right, actually, under Article 8 of the ECHR, which unfortunately we're still in, so we have to abide by that. And we are on the receiving end, and rightly so. And I just find it extraordinary that the Trump administration feels the need to monitor UK political prisoners. That is the depths to which we have sunk under this government.
Let's remind ourselves of when Starmer was in the White House, J.D. Vance having a go at him on this very issue.
Look, I said what I said, which is that we do have, of course, a special relationship with our friends in the UK and also with some of our European allies, but we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British, of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and, by extension, American citizens.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time. Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there.
Yeah, with tap dancing skills like that, he should go on Strictly Come Dancing, shouldn't he? You know, you can't. We don't have freedom of speech if we're going to lock people up for what they tweet. I mean that. We cannot be locking people up for hurty words on social media. Keir Starmer just thinks it's totally just. As long as you're inciting violence, then yes. 12 people are in jail for what they tweeted, what they put on posts, Facebook or Instagram during those riots, and they just shouldn't be.
You know, Keir Starmer, it's just a reminder, that little clip that you played, of the fact that we have a Prime Minister who seems to think that just by saying something is the case, that literally makes it true. Just as he says he's going to smash the gangs, and he is smashing the gangs, and Labour's reducing immigration, none of this is actually true. But he feels that if he just keeps saying it, somehow or other people will think it's true. I don't think anyone in the UK now thinks that they have unfettered freedom of speech. And it's certainly true that in a civilized society, there probably is some place for some minimal limits on freedom of speech. You know, there are certain thresholds that perhaps a civilized society says you shouldn't be able to cross, but not in the case of Lucy Connolly, where some random young mother, childminder who no one's ever heard of, briefly loses her temper and tweets something silly and deletes it 4 hours later and is in prison for 31 months. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
that's North Korea.
It's a continued stain on British justice. It really is. We've got to let her out. There's a story talking about, the increasing kind of sinister atmosphere in this country. There's a story on page 9 of the Daily Telegraph today saying half of white men now self-censor themselves at the office because they're terrified that they may say something that's not politically correct, that's not doesn't fit with the new DEI culture, etc., etc. So we're losing freedom of speech because we're getting scared about what trouble we may get into if we say the wrong things. That is not good. Before you go, I've got to get you on the Daily Mail front page today, Isabel. Just showing it there if you're not looking. It's scandal of fat cats on first ever NHS rich list. Basically, there are now 1,700 bureaucrats, middle managers on the NHS earning more than 100,000 a year. 512 are earning more than the Prime Minister. That means they're earning more than £173,000 a year. And 300 of them are on more than £200,000 a year. And I know for a fact there are quite a few on more than 300, more than 400 and more than £500,000. Now, I don't want to hear all these lefties, all these NHS apologists going, oh, we would give us more money. We need more money to heal the sick. Well, get rid of some of these 300 grand a year fat cats. Get rid of them. They're doing jobs that no one can explain. The middle management of the NHS is a scandal. It's a scandal. By the way, they also spend £40 million a year on 800 diversity officers. Get rid of them as well. The NHS's problem is not enough money. It's that they get enough money, but they have no idea how to spend it properly.
Well, I think there's a further piece of analysis that someone could do here, looking at whether the people that are being paid that much money are attached to trusts that are actually in good financial shape or in heavy deficit. And I guarantee that the majority of those individuals will be working for NHS trusts that are in financial trouble. How do I know that? Because pretty much all NHS trusts are in financial trouble. So there is no excuse for this. There are plenty of brilliant people who, out of their passion for trying to create a health service that would reliably deliver world-class healthcare to the vast majority of people that use it, there are people who would do that job for next to nothing.
Absolutely. People say, oh, well, you know, if you sorted out these highly paid middle managers, that's still just a drop in the ocean. It's a start, and it's not a drop in the ocean. They're getting paid hundreds of millions of pounds a year. So we have to stop that. We really do. Isabel, fantastic to talk to you as always. Thank you so much. We'll talk later in the week. That's Isabel Oakeshott Talks international editor. When we come back, Ben Habib on the fate of this British fishing boat, this trawler boat that's now been seized by the French. Very, very hot on seizing this whelk boat. Apparently it was fishing whelks outside its licensed area. They're not so hot on seizing migrants, are they, as they amble across their beaches on the way to the small boats that will take them to Britain. They're not very hot on that, but very hot on seizing our fishing boat. We'll talk about that after these messages. Stay where you are.
It is a team game.
Yeah.
And Rupert, I think, is constitutionally unable to be a team player. Now, there are things that could have been done to mitigate that. He could have been given work to do. The devil does make work for idle hands. He could have been given a job. Go away and draft and come up with an immigration policy, Rupert. Come back to us after doing the hard work, doing the hard graft, doing the miles, getting the information, doing the research. Come back to us with a reasoned, considered immigration policy to take forward to 2029. That would have been a useful thing.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Right, let's go straight over to my next guest. He's a former Brexit Party deputy leader. In fact, deputy leader of Reform UK, former Brexit Party MEP, and of course he is now the boss of the British PAC Party. A warm welcome to Ben Habib. Hi, Ben.
Good morning, Kevin. Good to see you.
Thank you for joining us. Let's talk first about a bit of a disgrace, I would suggest. The French have had the temerity to seize a British trawler vessel, a British fishing boat, apparently out there on the British Channel, allegedly fishing whelks in an area where it was not licensed so to do. The French have seized this boat and are holding it. The owner facing massive fines. British government warned, you know, this was a serious infringement of French fishing rights, European fishing rights, and so on and so forth. Well, they're very hot on this, aren't they, the French, Ben? I don't notice them being quite so vigilant on seizing migrants as they dawdle and amble across the northern French beaches on their way to waiting small boats, which are actually quite big boats, to be crammed onto them and sail across to Britain. They're not very hot on seizing migrants, but obviously very hot on seizing British fishing boats. Double standards here, isn't it?
It's complete double standards. And of course, as far as the migrants are concerned, we know that it's perfectly possible to intercept a dinghy at sea and to safely return it back to the shores from which it came, because the Belgians have been doing this for years now, and they've successfully reduced the number of launches from their shores by 92%. So the French need to take a leaf out of the Belgians' boat if they wish to be in good faith with the British government having taken hundreds of millions of pounds off us in order to stop these illegal crossings. But of course, the French aren't in good faith, are they? The French do what the French wish to do. And it seems pretty clear from what I've read that the impounding of this boat was, in fact, a retaliatory measure because a French fisherman who was bottom trawling in a marine sensitive area, in a protected area, bottom trawling, which I'm sure listeners will be aware is a deeply damaging way to fish, was bottom trawling in an area where he shouldn't have been doing it, had been charged, and I think he was fined £40,000 or something. This was the French being muscularly French, doing what they wish. And the British response to this boat being impounded is to say that there's an investigation ongoing and therefore we won't comment. Actually, this is a diplomatic incident, Kevin. It's the French authorities have taken over a British boat. Our Prime Minister should be absolutely hopping up and down with fury. Instead, he's doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ben. This is a major incident going on, unfolding before our very eyes. They've seized and impounded a British ship, a British boat.
Absolutely.
For what sounds to me like the most minor of alleged offences, fishing for whelks where they shouldn't have been. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. But as you say, I suspect politics are at play here, and the British government should be standing up for our fishermen. That poor guy is facing massive fines from the EU, and I think we should save him from that, don't you?
Completely. We should make this. What is the point of being a British citizen if the British government won't stand up for you when a foreign power takes your assets? This is a moment where Stark could actually show he cared a little bit about those of us who happen to hold a British passport, but he doesn't. He'd much rather sidle up and befriend the French. You see Starmer repeatedly putting his so-called international friends and partners over and above and to the detriment of the United Kingdom. It's absolutely wrong. It makes my stomach turn. At one level, we can dismiss it and say it's just one fishing boat that's been impounded. But at another level, it's deeply serious. We have a government that isn't prepared to stand up for British interests. That's very, very concerning. The other thing, just on a point of detail, which strikes me is that, as I'm sure viewers, listeners will be aware, and you're aware, Kevin, there are limits on the catch that French boats can take when they come into British waters. Those limits are adhered to by the French by fishing basically indiscriminately. Their nets drag up anything that they can get. And then they adhere to those catches, having killed that which they should not have caught and chucking it overboard before any possible inspection can take place.
Yeah.
And so they are habitually abusing our British waters. And we do nothing about it. We never actually use the right to inspect what they've got on their boats. We never impound a French boat and say, right, prove to us that the processes you've been using are consistent with the deal that we've got with your government. We don't do it.
Absolutely.
They come in, they do whatever they want, they damage our environment, they kill our fish, they take back with impunity British fish, if I can say that, and our government in response is timid to the point of dereliction of duty. Timid to the point of dereliction of duty.
And the French, as you say, they sort of bottom trawl. They put these huge nets with all across the bottom, which literally destroys the marine environment. And as you say, they catch what they want, but they catch everything else as well. It is totally destructive, and that's what they're doing. I think our government should be standing up against that. And right now, it should be standing up for this British trawler that has been seized and impounded by the French. It's an outrage. Before you go, Ben, let me ask you about this. Kosovo, we're told, is the next target to take Britain's small boat migrants. Don't laugh, take it seriously now. Keir Starmer, I mean, the underlying sort of comedy of this is a guy who threw the Rwanda scheme into the bin on day one, saying it's a gimmick, it's a gimmick. It was a £700 million gimmick. We've already spent £700 million on it, so perhaps he shouldn't have been quite so impetuous about chucking it into the bin and wasting all that money spent. But last couple of months he's been looking for foreign countries to take our migrants. Okay, the idea of Rwanda was that they would process asylum seekers and take the whole system all the way through. The idea of these new systems is after failure of their asylum applications, we take them abroad to disperse them after that. But basically, after dismissing the Rwanda scheme as a gimmick, he's now desperately looking for foreign countries to take our migrants to. So it's the scheme essentially that he chucked in the bin on day one. This guy does not know his backside from his elbow, does he?
No, I mean, I think the trap into which he's fallen is the same trap that the Conservative government fell into, which is their lack of preparedness to enforce borders. Basically means deportation is the only answer that they've got to the illegal crossings of the Channel. And deportation doesn't work because of the European Convention of Human Rights and the Human Rights Act in the United Kingdom. It simply doesn't work as a as a process to be applied across the board. And so they end up having to look at these completely convoluted, impractical, hugely expensive and unimplementable schemes. And so they're just going around their own navel. What they've got to discover is a bit more of the muscular nature that the French seem to have, and just stop these damn dinghies in the channel and tell them to go back to bloody France, where they came from, perfectly capably, under their own decision and under their own steam. What is wrong with our government? Do they not understand a border should not be crossed? Stop people. And the argument they'll make, Kevin, I'm just going to say this, the argument they'll make is that, oh, we couldn't endanger the lives of these people trying to stop them in these difficult waters. Well, these people made that decision to get in that dinghy themselves and to make that journey on their own. And why is it that the primary duty of our government, which is to protect civil society in the United Kingdom, protect, again, British citizenry, a bit like the way they should be protecting the owner of that boat, why is it that they're prepared to sacrifice British civil society on the altar of the protection of people who are trying to enter our country illegally? Why do we choose to damage ourselves in the pursuit of protecting others? We must become firmer as a country. We've got to enforce our damn borders. We've got to get real.
Absolutely, Ben. Wise words as always. Great to talk to you. Thank you very much. That's Ben Habib, former Deputy Leader of Reform UK, of course, and now leader of the British PAC Party. Let me know what you think about what he had to say. What should we do about our migrant crisis? 0344 499 1000. You can also send a WhatsApp voice note on that same number. When we come back after this break, we're going to go over to America, to the West Coast, to talk to the great Kinsey Schofield about the latest goings on Planet Megan. Stay tuned for that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to the West Coast of America and talk to the host of the Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, Kinsey Schofield. Welcome, Kins.
I like my name and my title like you, Kevin.
Yeah. How many times do I have to say Kinsey Schofield in that intro? About like 25 times. That's good enough for me, Kins. Seriously, I was really intrigued by this story in the Mail on Sunday over the weekend, yesterday, in fact. And it's this story at Harry's new royal court. If you're watching, I've got the double-page spread in the Mail on Sunday, all over page 6 and 7. And basically, they've hired 11 people to
White people.
To change their entire operation. Now, all of these people will be on $100,000 or so more. I mean, what are they all going to do?
Well, first of all, if I were a monster, I would accuse Harry and Meghan of unconscious bias based on that sea of white you see on the screen to your left there while you're looking at all of the images of these new hires. I mean, Harry and Meghan are the king and queen of DEI.
Not here, they're not. There's not a whole lot of diversity in this lineup, is there?
Is that not the truth? I mean, I am shocked at the lack of diversity when it comes to these new hires. And then, you know, Prince Harry, every time he opens his mouth on television, he's talking to us about how he fears history repeating itself. Well, in that theme, if history continues to repeat itself, they have a group full of skillful, talented, brilliant new advisors. And we expect Harry and Meghan not to listen to them. Not only not to listen to them, but in Meghan's case, potentially not be very nice to them.
Yes, indeed. Her track record of staff relations isn't exactly top of the charts, is it? But seriously, so 11 people hired into Montecito. They're not going to work for the Archwell Foundation, which is Harry and Meghan's sort of laughable charity outfit, which hasn't done anything, doesn't do anything, doesn't have much money, doesn't donate to anybody. God knows what the hell it does, really. This is all to work for Brand Sussex. 11 people. Brand Sussex. So we know what she's doing. She's trying, you know, she's got another TV series coming out on Netflix with Love Meghan. She's got her flop podcast series, Confessions of a Female Founder. She seems to be doing a lot of interviews as well. She's got As Ever, her lifestyle site, flogging sort of thin gruel, pretend jam and honey and things like that. So we know what she's got going on. It doesn't really amount to that much. He, meanwhile, doesn't really seem to be doing anything at all. So my question to you, Kinsey, is what are these 11 people going to do? Well,
you and I ask ourselves every week, every few days, if we're being honest, we discuss what is Prince Harry doing, and I wonder if word is getting back to him, because in the Mail on Sunday piece, they say that Prince Harry specifically is really bothered by a lot of the media coverage, the negative media coverage about them, that this is a moment of humility where he's desperate to turn the tide when it comes to their popularity. And this is, you know, how many rebrands have we gone through over the last 5 years? But this is certainly being considered another one of those. How can we try to change public perception and get people on our side? And they're going to try to utilize this army of 11 to create some big, bold strategy that will erase 5 years of harassing the British royal family. We talked about it last week, but Page 6 reports over the weekend that Meghan not only had a fight with the editor of British Vogue over not getting the cover, but she personally reached out to Anna Wintour, and they did a Zoom because she wanted the September cover, the biggest Vogue cover of the year, the September cover of the US and the UK, and that Anna Wintour was like completely dismissive of her. But we have to keep in mind, Kevin, this is all going on while Queen Elizabeth is dying. In September of 2022, and in the lead up towards that, remember at that Jubilee, we were hearing about mobility issues. She was not showing up to engagements. We knew she was getting, becoming more ill, fragile. If we know, Harry and Meghan know too. And I just don't think people are going to ever forgive all of the shameless scheming we've seen from them over the last 5 years.
And I think it's really interesting what you say. You're quite right, Kinsey, that, Harry has let it be known that he, uncharacteristically, he feels he may have handled things not particularly well over the last couple of years in terms of his behaviour and his image. And he believes now he's got some image repairing to do, which may be something to do with this blizzard of hiring people at Montecito. But he's going, oh yeah, maybe, I did do things right. Well, no, you didn't do things right, Harry. You went over there, you gave this horrible interview to Oprah Winfrey, you accused your own family of being racists. That was a lie. That was unjustified and extremely cruel. Then you wrote your book revealing all the royal family's secrets, intimate secrets. Why did you do that? For cash. Meanwhile, your wife's venal pursuit of billionaire status is just embarrassing, trying to monetize her minor royal status. And then, finally, that dreadful interview that he gave to the BBC 3 weeks or so ago after losing his long, stupid legal battle to be given armed police protection when he comes to Britain. He neither warrants nor deserves that. We always knew he was going to lose that case. When he did, he threw his toys out of the pram like a spoilt brat who didn't get his own way and started talking about his dad not talking to him. Who can blame him for that? But also that his dad, King Charles, was in collusion with shadowy figures in the government, and they wanted him dead. They wanted Harry dead. I mean, this guy, he's losing his marbles, but everything he has done that I just listed, plus a lot more, to be honest with you. And then he turns around and says, oh, well, maybe I've done a few things wrong, so perhaps I might have to repair my image. No, Harry, what you've done is you've blown yourself out of the water by 5 years, 7 years, arguably, of atrocious behaviour. You can't repair your image. It's irreparably damaged.
Well, one of the sources actually says Harry is so unpopular. He has last conceded there's nowhere to go but up. I mean, that's pretty bad if you feel like that you're. But what I am curious about is this report that he has a commercial venture that we should be finding out about in the next few months. That, you know, the professional separation. Meghan's going to chase entertainment with a vengeance. And what could Prince Harry potentially be up to? I know that this sounds tacky, but I'm wondering if he's going to head into the alcohol space, because that is so trendy. All of the celebrities have their own whiskey brands. You know, there were rumors that Meghan would have her own rosé. There is a little bit of royalty when it comes to a classy beverage. So I'm like, could he go into the alcoholic beverage space? He's
Very
so
interesting.
lost.
I reckon, Kinsey, second-hand cars. Honest Harry's Motors, you know, best bargain, something like that. What do you reckon? But I think the alcohol's a good idea. But yeah, you're right. They are threatening, promising us that he's got a commercial venture coming up. And as I think I've said to you, I'm convinced that the big story about these two going forward is going to be financial. She's not making enough money. As ever, isn't making any money. I don't think it ever will. The TV shows, not much of a future there. Daily Mail on Saturday reporting she's going to be offered a third series of With Love Meghan by Netflix. I'll believe that when I see it. I don't believe that story. So she's not making enough money. He's not making any money. They're living billionaires' lifestyles on millionaires' money. They're going to have to find some cash from somewhere.
Well, if Netflix continues to be generous, that will be a light at the end of the tunnel. But if you're curious, Justine Bateman, who, remember, called them like tragedy vultures, wrote a really interesting, unrelated piece about Harry and Meghan over the weekend on her Substack, I believe, about how when it comes to streaming, the suits are no longer invested in analytics, and it's now about if a project suits their purpose and their agenda, and how streaming has changed the game as to what kind of content is made. And I think that's all we're seeing here with Meghan and Ted Sarandos. She has kissed up to him. She was kissing up to him at the Beyonce concert in LA. She has established a friendship with him, and he is buying into it. And this is her meal ticket.
Yeah, well, he needs to be careful. I mean, I think what Ted Sarandos likes about her is she does make a lot of noise. So people who make a lot of noise, you know, arguably they can turn that into money, making money. But the way I see it is, yes, Meghan makes a lot of noise. But does she make any money? Can she make any money out of this? I think it's extremely unlikely, but we will watch this space with interest as always, Kinsey. Brilliant to talk to you. We'll talk again, I think, tomorrow, and then maybe my show on Friday. So the great Kinsey Schofield there, the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. When we come back, we'll be going back to America, metaphorically, to talk about the Lucy Connolly case and how it is now very much high on the White House agenda. Very interesting. That next. Stay tuned.
18 people being stabbed is it's so many. And then the most surprising part of this, it was a German woman, 39 years old, who was known to the police, appeared to be in a state of mental distress. There's no evidence that she acted with anyone else or any sort of terrorism aspect. And actually, if you go back a few months, there was a really nasty fatal stabbing in Aschaffenburg, where a little girl was killed.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're going to talk about free speech. We're going to talk to Lewis Mark, maybe, at the Free Speech Union in just a second. But we've got a voice note first on free speech, and it's from Liam. Take it away, Liam.
Good morning, Kev, Liam in Folkestone. I think freedom of speech died long ago. Look at Alison Pearson. Look at the couple in Hertfordshire that had 9 coppers turn up at their door. For America to start investigating freedom of speech here, when usually they investigate places like Venezuela, for example, is deeply worrying. Anyway, I hope you're being paid double time. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, but very good. Every point very well made there, Liam, apart from the last bit. I'm not getting paid double time. I'm getting paid single time. It's not fair, is it? I'm not getting any extra money for this. I have to get up at 3:30 in the morning. I'm doing an extra hour, you know. I'm the world's worst negotiator apart from Keir Starmer. Let's carry on, shall we? We should go straight over to the legal officer at the Free Speech Union because they have been handling Lucy Connolly's case. So a warm welcome to Louis Maybe. Hi, Louis.
Thanks for having me on.
Interesting stuff coming across the Atlantic, that the US State Department have gone to the trouble of issuing this statement. We can confirm that this is about Lucy Connolly. We can confirm that we are monitoring this matter. The United States supports freedom of expression at home and abroad and remains concerned about infringements of freedom of expression. They're talking about Lucy Connolly. Lucy Connolly doing 31 months for posting hurty words on Twitter. Not very nice post at all, but she shouldn't have even gone to jail, let alone do 31 months. And the fact that we are now being monitored by the White House for infringements of freedom of speech and freedom of expression, they're very worried in particular about the Lucy Connolly case, puts us in a very unusually invidious position with the United States. I mean, these are usually the kind of monitoring situations that they reserve for North Korea and Myanmar, Russia, China. Now they're doing us as well. So when Keir Starmer says, freedom of speech is so important, well, it cannot be important to a Prime Minister who's prepared to preside over a justice system that puts people behind bars for the hurty words they post on social media. If you are prepared to sanction that, you don't believe in freedom of speech, do you?
Well, I think it should be a wake-up call to the UK that the US has a strong belief in freedom of expression. The First Amendment is a very, very strong tool to protect free speech. And the US believes that Europe is, not just the UK, but the whole of Europe, is failing in a massive way. And Lucy Connolly's case is one particular case where the people from the US just can't understand why it's attracted such a long sentence. 31 months for something like this, which I don't even think in America under the First Amendment would even have resulted in a conviction, let alone such a long sentence. So, and whilst it might be a bit annoying to have our domestic affairs interfered with, maybe we do need a jolt, because there are so many cases that we see where free speech has been interfered with.
Well, absolutely. I mean, in America, I mean, having lived there, I lived there for 10 years or so in the 90s, they wouldn't even consider charging Lucy Connolly on this basis. They wouldn't even consider talking to her. Saying, oh, you shouldn't do this. As far as they're concerned, this is freedom of speech. Now, they're pretty absolutist about freedom of speech. We are less so. But Keir Starmer, I think, has taken, our sort of more diffident approach to freedom of speech to the next level. And out of the 385 or so who went to jail for those riots, the summer riots, the Southport riots, 12 went to jail for that which they wrote on social media, posts on social media. I just think as a country, Louis, we have to think about this. We need a system whereby nobody goes to jail for silly stuff they post on social media. That's not right, I don't think. And that's why I think the Americans are so concerned. They think that we're going down the wrong path here.
Right, and Americans see... I suppose they see themselves as the successor to England. A lot of the constitutional protections are based on stuff that came from the UK originally, and it's based on Enlightenment values. And they see what is happening in the UK and think that the UK is letting itself down. So I think this doesn't come from a place of wanting to chide the UK. It comes from a place of concern. We come from a similar civilizational point. And the US thinks that something's gone terribly wrong. And of course, the Connolly case isn't the only case that we've seen.
Well, as I say, 12 people went to jail for the riots for what they posted on social media.
Right, and the courts in these particular cases became so, I suppose, concerned about what had happened with the riots that they went a bit too far. They decided to take into account the circumstances of the riots and criminalise tweets that had happened before the riots had even started. Connolly's tweet was on the day. It was a knee-jerk reaction. She was angry. She was also sympathetic to the family, which the judges in the case didn't seem to recognise. They said that she hadn't expressed sympathy, but she said that she was feeling sick because of the families. So there wasn't really much space for the courts to express empathy for her situation.
We have to ask, Louis, don't we? We have to ask, why is it she's doing significantly more time than some of the actual rioters? Some of the people caught throwing bricks at coppers, some of the people caught trying to set fire to mosques and asylum seeker hotels. They got less than she got. She wasn't even there. She was hundreds of miles away. Now, do you have any concerns? I know you've been at the Free Speech Union sort of helping Lucy with her case and her appeal, which of course failed last week. Do you have any concerns about the appeal court judge, Lord Justice Holroyd, who showed Lucy no mercy but was very happy to reduce the sentence of Lord Nazir Ahmed, Labour peer? He was convicted in January 2022 of sexually abusing 2 children in the 70s. Originally got 5 years and 6 months. Lord Justice Holroyd reduced it to 2 years and 6 months. Anthony Marsh, a paedophile with HIV who enjoyed having unprotected sex with underage boys. He had his life sentence quashed by the Court of Appeal, including Lord Justice Holroyd, to a 12-year term. And we've got 3 to 4 other examples where this judge has significantly reduced the sentences of serious paedophiles and sex offenders, able to show them mercy but not Lucy Connolly. Bit odd, isn't it?
Well, in that case, it did turn on the specific legal issues. So that case turned on.
Yeah, but there are 4 more. There are 4 more. He keeps letting sex offenders off, but not Lucy Connolly.
Well, in that particular case, it was about
Well,
child
it's not just that particular case. There's a lot more. Listen, Louis, perhaps we should talk about this at another date, but you take my point, I think. Good to talk to you, mate. Thank you very much. That's Louis Maybe, legal officer at the Free Speech Union. Back in a mo. Stay where you are. How much?
You said you don't like Polish people and you don't trust them.
That's not what I said.
Yes, that's what you said.
No. You must have misheard me. I like Polish people a lot.
Christ me, I never heard of this from you. I've heard this on the radio.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. You want to have a listen? Have a listen to what I said. Okay. Listen to this.
Yes.
I don't like Poles. I wasn't talking about Polish people.
Yes.
I was talking about polls, you know, when you do a poll to find out what people think. You know, like they say 55% of people vote Remain, 45% vote Leave. That's a poll. I wasn't talking about...
but later on you said you don't trust them, so you don't...
I don't trust them. No, that's true. I don't trust polls, and I don't like polls because I don't trust them. But that's not Polish people.
No, that's what I thought. That's what I pick up.
Oh,
so
I'm terribly sorry. Listen, well, I would never say anything like that.
No, so in this case, I never learned English.
No, listen, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I'm very glad you called in because I wouldn't want you walking around thinking that Mike Graham is a horrible bigot. He doesn't like Polish people.
No, I was thinking, what the hell? What's going on here? Actually, I'm actually back and explain a few things.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Mike Graham's not here. You may have noticed. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. Mike's away at a very glamorous destination, sunning himself, having a few well-deserved days off. He works too hard, that guy. Seriously, he'll be back on Wednesday, so he'll have to put up with me tomorrow as well. So an honour and a privilege to stand in for the great man. Much coming up in this hour, but first, let's go straight to my first guest. We're going to have a look at that later on in the half hour, around about 8:30. We're going to have a look at this extraordinary story about the number of NHS fat cats who are earning £100,000 or £200,000 or £300,000 or more. This is an organisation constantly moans about not having enough money, and yet it has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of middle managers, not medically qualified, earning hundreds of thousands of pounds. We now know 512 of them earn more than the Prime Minister. Prime Minister gets 173 grand. We've got 300 of them on more than 200,000. And the list goes on. Why are they all earning so much money? Get rid of them. Give the money to doctors, to nurses. You know, they're always wanting pay rises. They can afford it. if you didn't have so many grotesquely, obscenely overpaid middle managers, couldn't they? Well, while they're at it, get rid of the 800 diversity officers that cost 40 million quid a year. Honestly, the NHS, oh, we haven't got enough money. No, no, no. You get plenty of money, you just don't know how to spend it. They spend it like a drunken sailors, mostly on themselves. How about spending some money on curing patients? Be a good idea, wouldn't it? Anyway, that later in the show. But before we get to any of that, let's go through some of the big stories of the day with former Labour MP and now, of course, a Reform UK man, Simon Danczuk. Well, welcome, Simon.
Hey, Kevin, good to be with you.
Pleasure to have you on board. Well, first of all, let's talk about that story I was just droning on about, but it's all over the front page of the Daily Mail today. They've now started a NHS rich list, and on that will be the 512 bosses, NHS executives who earn more than the Prime Minister, £170,000 a year. 1,700 of them earn more than 100,000, 300 earn more than 200,000, and I know for a fact there are quite a few who earn more than 300, more than 400, and more than 500,000. We cannot take the NHS's constant complaints about not having enough money seriously until West Streeting or someone does something about the grotesque situation of these hundreds of middle managers doing jobs that we can't even understand for hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. Something has to be done about that, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. This is research by the Taxpayers Alliance. And it's much needed, there's no doubt about that. We are rewarding failure. I mean, that's the truth of it. People are on waiting lists. I think if you look at East Cheshire Health Authority there, the Deputy Chief Executive is on well over £300,000 a year. But, you know, over half of the people who present at A&E don't get seen within 4 hours. You are sat in A&E for over 4 hours, and the Deputy Chief Executive, never mind the Chief Executive, is on over £300,000 a year. That can't be right. We are rewarding failure, and something dramatic has to change if we're going to sort the NHS out.
Exactly right. You know, you can't moan about not having enough money if you're going to waste it on all of these hundreds, you know, hundreds of them on more, well, 1,700 on more than £100,000. And I bet you'd have trouble defining exactly what their jobs really are. Something must be done about this. And did you know, there's a story today almost buried, hidden away at the bottom of the front page of the Telegraph, that 2 biological men every day are given trans surgery on the NHS. Trans surgery. This is to feminise them, do whatever it is that they want to do in their transition from male to alleged female. Of course, they don't become females. But that surgery is costing us, the taxpayer, £40 million a year. Shouldn't, I mean, if people want to make that decision, I'm not making any comment about whether or not people want to live their lives as men or women or however the hell they want to live their lives. As far as I'm concerned, whatever makes them happy. But if you want to make that decision to transition allegedly from male to pretend female or the other way round, female to male, shouldn't that be at your own expense?
Absolutely, and it is pretend female, isn't it? I mean, we're spending a fortune on this. It should not be a priority for the National Health Service. If men, and in often the case, it's young men who probably aren't ready to make the right decision, I have to say, who are relying on the NHS to sort this out. And it's costing absolutely millions. And one consequence of this is that there are so many complications in this sort of procedure that some of them are coming back and then suing the NHS because they're not happy with what's happened. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. There must surely be bigger priorities for the National Health Service than helping a man who wants to transition and feminise into a woman. If they want to do that, that's up to them. but they should go private and pay for it themselves, quite simply.
Absolutely. The rest of us shouldn't be paying for this stuff. I've been talking about this story to most of my guests, but I'd be fascinated to get your take on it, Simon. But I think this is pretty major. The White House State Department making the point of announcing an official statement: we are monitoring the Lucy Connolly case. We are watching Britain and monitoring it for their perceived fear that we are losing our grip on freedom of speech and freedom of expression, that the Lucy Connolly case itself epitomises what America fears about Keir Starmer's Britain, that Keir Starmer is actually threatening freedom of speech here. He sits in the White House. Freedom of speech is so important, so important. As I keep saying, any Prime Minister who's prepared to preside over a justice system that sends anybody to prison for posting a few hurty words on Twitter, on social media. Any Prime Minister who's prepared to preside over this, I say, is not the friend of freedom of speech. He is the enemy of freedom of speech. And we are now in the embarrassing position, the humiliating position of being monitored for our approach to freedom of speech, just like they monitor Myanmar and North Korea and China and Russia. They are monitoring us now, and they're very worried about Lucy Connolly. Starmer's getting this all wrong, isn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, this is probably the most authoritarian government Britain has ever had. And I don't say that lightly. I study politics all over the world, looking at different countries, as you've just been pointing out. And I have to say, this is pretty draconian. You see Lucy Connolly, she is, to all intents and purposes, a political prisoner. I mean, that's the reality of it. And credit to Alison Pearson from the Daily Telegraph. She's been doing some great campaigning on this to try and get Lucy freed. 31 months for a daft tweet, for a silly tweet. I mean, just incredible. The idea that it might have incited violence is a nonsense. She deleted it within 4 hours. And we have a criminal justice system that puts her away for 31 months. Is that the reality of the country in which we live? I mean, it is quite incredible. And Keir Starmer is overseeing this. He's happy to see this happen. And I have to say, any politician that defends the situation that Lucy Connolly is in should not be in Parliament. I think it's an absolute disgrace. I'm furious about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. There's no... the Lucy Connolly case, as I say, it epitomises everything that's going wrong in terms of freedom of expression in this country. We've got a Prime Minister, we've got a political elite who seem to be able to justify this. Oh, well, they incited violence. She was hundreds of miles away. In the nicest possible way, she's a kind of a nobody. A mother enraged about the fate of 3 fellow mums who lost their kids in those most appalling circumstances. She shouldn't be in jail. I don't think we should put anybody in jail for what you write on social media, but Keir Starmer seems very, very relaxed about it. He can justify, incitement to violence. Nonsense. She's a political prisoner. You're exactly right. Let's talk a little bit, Simon, if we can, about what we hear is the chaos now at number 10 Downing Street. You can tell that Angela Rayner wants to be Prime Minister and leader of the Labour Party because she went on television yesterday to deny it. Once a deputy has to deny that they want to be the leader, it means it's true. She is on massive manoeuvres and she is attacking Starmer from the left. The problem with Starmer here is that in his craven pursuit of popularity, votes anywhere, he's basically sort of ripped up the Labour playbook and said, right, we'll take the winter fuel allowance away from those pensioners. Oh, never mind the waspy women. They can go hang. Never mind. Oh, slash benefits. Let's save a massive amount of money on paying people welfare and all this. Very un-Labour. Angela Rayner's attacking him from the left and saying you're not acting like a Labour leader. And he's struggling. And she is on manoeuvres, isn't she?
There's no doubt about that, Kevin. Listen, I was in the Labour Party for over 30 years. I sat in Parliament as a Labour MP. I know many of the figures who we are talking about, and Angela's ambitions cannot be contained. She is desperate to become Prime Minister, and it's probably her only chance, because you wouldn't choose her to be the leader of the Labour Party going into a general election, because the public just wouldn't vote for her. But if Keir Starmer fell under a bus, then she might just have a chance because they're already in power. But this isn't good for the public. I mean, it's all playing out. The country's not being well run, and yet you've got Keir Starmer, Angela Rayner, Rachel Reeves playing student politics at the head of government. I mean, we need some strong leadership, and it's not Keir Starmer nor Angela Rayner for that matter.
Starmer is, proving to us all that he's struggling because, he had to make that concession in the Commons last week. It was rather euphemistically called his incredible U-turn on the winter fuel payment allowance. The thing is, though, it wasn't really. If he's going to make a U-turn on axing the winter fuel allowance, he has to return to what it was before. Now, what that was, no questions asked, every single pensioner got £300. Every single one. OK, a lot of pensioners didn't need it, but most did. And many of them absolutely relied on it. He took it away blanket. So unless he returns it to that, unless he says, right, sorry, I'm reinstating it, everyone gets it, then he's not doing a U-turn. What he actually sort of said last week, in very vague terms, was that he might make the new means tests a little less draconian, but there'd be no announcement, he said, talking in a way that nobody would understand until the next fiscal event. What he means in English, he should try and speak English to the population, really. It will go a lot better. What he means when he says the next fiscal event, he means the budget. That's in October, by which time it'll be rather too late for the winter fuel allowance. This guy is just dealing in weasel words, isn't he? He's not U-turning on the winter fuel allowance at all.
Keir Starmer's that bad he can't even do a U-turn properly. I mean, this is really poor. I mean, is he going to readjust it back to what it was, or isn't he? And because he's failing to handle that effectively, he loses any political capital that he might have retrieved from the U-turn. I mean, the situation is desperately bad. And the Sunday papers were full of it yesterday in terms of Rachel Reeves and her position as Chancellor. I mean, I think she'll be lucky to survive the year. She's having to do one U-turn after another. And she has no credibility left. I mean, the markets, the public just don't believe a word that she says, because she's having to reverse lots of the decisions that she initially took when she came to be Chancellor. And the interesting thing is that Keir Starmer's inextricably linked to Rachel Reeves. If she goes, then and he will dump her eventually. But then serious questions have to be asked about his leadership if they're not being asked already.
Yeah, there's no greater indictment of a Prime Minister than when he or she has to get rid of their Chancellor, because the Chancellor, as you say, is the most important appointment, and if they have to get rid of the Chancellor, it means they've made a profound mistake, and they're always very, very loath to do it. That's why she's still in her job, but God knows what the future holds for Rachel Reeves. You're a long time in politics in Westminster, Simon. To me, as an outsider, a sort of a veteran observer of those scenes, I can't understand why Keir Starmer keeps self-harming with these decisions that are not necessary. He didn't have to get rid of the winter fuel allowance. It costs £1.4 billion a year. That's nothing in governmental terms. He didn't have to do it. The Chagos Islands, he certainly doesn't have to give away. So he keeps making these decisions that are wildly unpopular that he doesn't have to make. Why is he doing that?
I think that's a really good question, Kevin. On the winter fuel allowance, if you observe what previous chancellors have said, and we're going back some time in history now, they've said that the civil service, people in the Treasury, have come to them and said, here's an opportunity to reduce costs. Why don't we reduce the winter fuel allowance for some people? And all of the previous chancellors have rejected it, but not Rachel Reeves. And so it's naivete on Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer's part. They've accepted what Treasury officials have said to them. They're not fit to govern. I mean, they've made a stupid decision that other chancellors refuse to enact. And Treasury officials will always try and pull the wool over the politicians' eyes. But in this instance, they've accepted it. On the broader issue of Chagos and Keir Starmer's position into a whole range of issues, I genuinely believe, and I've given this some thought over the last few days, he has an internationalist, globalist view of the world, and he is enacting it. He doesn't care about what the British public think. He believes in decolonisation. He feels guilty over the fact that Britain was once great. He's a strong believer in being at the centre of Europe. He has a record for saying and being at the centre of Europe, and he's enacting it in every way that he can. That's his agenda, and he's trying to fulfil it, and it's absolute madness.
Yeah, it is madness because the elephant in the room that I left out of my little list of unnecessary howlers was his Brexit reset, which of course everybody else calls a Brexit betrayal. He didn't really have to do all this, and yet he's done it, and by laying it out to the public, it automatically becomes massively unpopular. So he may believe he's taking us down the appropriate globalist path, but it will be the political death of him. And before you go, Simon, you're an old Labour man. You've seen your old party at war. The old war is erupting again, isn't it? Labour pulling itself apart because of the left versus the right, if you like. Always there's a prime minister or a leader of the party who is always at war with the left, and the forces of the left in the Labour Party are rising, and he's in trouble because of it, isn't he?
Well, this Labour Party isn't the Labour Party that I joined many years ago. That's why I'm not with it now. I mean, this is a Labour Party that's more related to the middle-class college lecturer, well-to-do lawyers than it is to real working people. This is North London Labour elite, and it has no real connection to hard-working people, and that's why it's struggling in the opinion polls. I mean, it won the general election on a paper-thin majority. There were no enthusiasm for Labour, but they've managed to get into power. And Starmer is just an absolute nightmare. But you're right, people like Angela Rayner, the trade unions, are beginning to reassert themselves, and they're hoping to take over from Starmer. The sad thing about all this is that the country is going to hell in a handcart whilst they're fighting over who should be leading the country.
Yeah, I always feel like saying, you think it's bad under Keir Starmer? You wait till Angela Rayner takes over. Simon, brilliant to talk to you. Thank you so much. Simon Danjett there, former Labour MP and now a prominent member of Reform UK. When we come back, we'll be talking to the Sun's political correspondent, Martina Bett. Stay tuned for that.
someone like Lucy Connolly, not a bad speck on her record, who is a childminder to kids from all different backgrounds, all different races, gets upset one day because little kids have been murdered, and she was thinking about
Brutally
the parents
murdered,
of those children.
Yeah, of course.
And she wrote something and then later deleted it thinking, this isn't me, this is not how I normally say things. Then she did plenty of tweets saying, you know, the rioting's dreadful, I wish it would stop. I mean, it's case closed.
Right.
The woman's not a threat to society. There's no reason for her to be in prison. The reason they've abolished her visitation rights is because they've made her a political prisoner.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is, what is it, 25 past 8. I should do more sort of time check, shouldn't I? Breakfast and all that. So I'll do this evening show, 7 to 10, every night, Monday to Friday. It's called The Political Asylum. I highly recommend it. But I never do time checks. I've never done them very much. I used to do weekend breakfasts, never did them. So it's 8:26 a.m, so let's carry on. Let's go straight over now to the political correspondent of The Sun, Martina Bett. Welcome, Martina.
Good morning, Kevin.
Well, look, let's talk about your colleague, Harry Cole. He's written his excellent column in The Sun this morning. And his headline is Flip-Flop PM is all at sea as sharks circle. Taxes look like they may have to go up to fund a backtrack, a U-turn on benefit policy generally. Looks like they want to at least reinstate most of the winter fuel allowance. They're also going to cut back on the benefit cuts that Rachel Reeves wanted to make, the Chancellor. They're having to do this because the left of the Labour Party are complaining. But it just makes the Prime Minister look like a man of straw who just blows with the wind. Whatever you want, I can do it. As Harry says, you know, those are my principles, and if you don't like them, well, I have others. That sums Keir Starmer up. You never quite know what he stands for, but basically what he really stands for is I'll do anything to stay in power.
That's right. That's how Harry put it in his brilliant column today. You know, he dubbed Keir Starmer the Groucho Marx Prime Minister. And as you said, you know, he goes, these are my principles, and if you don't like them, well, I have others. And, you know, I think that's exactly the problem. And we've seen with this U-turn on winter fuel, you know, where first Labour threatened to take away the payment from 10 million pensioners, then backed off, basically has managed to alienate everyone. You know, they've taken the political hit, burned the public trust, and now won't even get the savings or the market credibility that they were aiming for, as Harry put it. So, you know, it's self-sabotage. It's quite a pattern, actually, because as Harry, again, put it, you know, there's a long list of Labour flip-flops. And, you know, going on in terms of Rachel Reeves, you know, the Chancellor seems to be stuck because I think you were discussing this earlier with your previous guest, Simon, that it's a credibility crisis because, you know, now that they're looking at reversing with this winter fuel cut and then the child benefit, that could be a 5 billion hole in the public finances. And we know that the public finances are not going that well. Borrowing went up last week. So she's got very little choice but to hike taxes. So it's very difficult to see how Keir Starmer will still have Rachel Reeves as his Chancellor by the time of the autumn budget.
Exactly right. And Andrew Neil wrote in the Mail over the weekend, and we're going to talk about, if we may, Martina, a kind of problem, I think, that this government is increasingly labouring with, if I can put it that way. He said that in 55 years of covering politics, almost as long as I have been, that he has never known a government, or indeed a prime minister, more prone to lying and gaslighting the public. That he said that in the past, in his illustrious career, you didn't go anywhere near suggesting that the Prime Minister ever lied or that senior politicians ever lied. And yet, for Keir Starmer and his crew, it seems to be routine. He is not straight with us. This is a problem, isn't it? That anything he says, so when he says, yes, I will be, we're looking at the winter fuel allowance, and people misinterpret that as a U-turn. I'm not sure it is. We don't actually know what to expect from that statement, because you never know with this guy what the truth is. All he said was there'll definitely be some sort of announcement at the next fiscal event. I assume by that he means the budget. That's October. Going to be a bit late for the winter fuel allowance by then, if you think about it. But you never quite know what this guy means, whether he's telling the truth. Will this happen? Or is it just another headline hunting announcement?
Well, I think that's a real problem, because during the general election, and I followed Keir Starmer during the general election campaign, and he wasn't saying, he kept saying that taxes are not going up, but then in terms of public cuts that we knew were coming because were already baked into the books, it would say that they wouldn't, that they would solve that by growing the economy. So they weren't really honest with the public then, and that's why I think lots of people, they wanted to see change so soon, and they were oversold something, now feel so let down. And then the first thing they got was this winter fuel payment announcement, done in isolation, just like a couple of weeks into the new Labour government. And now they're U-turning on it, despite the fact that for weeks, they were saying that the policy still stood, and that there wasn't going to be a U-turn. And then, last week, Prime Minister stands up in Prime Minister's questions and says, we're looking at making more pensioners eligible. We all heard that. Kemi Badenoch didn't quite at the time, because it took a couple of minutes, a couple of questions to realise that's what the Prime Minister had said, which is what Harry picks up in his column. And we know that Kemi Badenoch is not in a very good position either. But yeah, you're completely right. In terms of public trust, the fact that people change and politicians change their mind with a click of a finger is definitely a problem.
It certainly is. Martina, good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Martina Bett there, political correspondent at The Sun, talking about Harry Cole, the political editor there, in his column today. Flip-flop PM is all at sea as Sharks circle. The Sharks, of course, mainly being Angela Rayner and the unions. They fancy getting rid of Starmer, and they fancy putting Angela in. Angela Rayner, Prime Minister. Fancy that? As I say, you think it's bad under Starmer. Wait till she gets hold of the ship. It'll sink pretty damn quickly. Next up, we're going to talk about the NHS. This is due to, we've been talking about this story all day. Big revelations all over the front page of the Mail that 300 health bosses are handed packages worth over £200,000. More than 500 of them earn more than the Prime Minister. He gets 173,000, and there are 1,700 who earn more than £100,000. They're getting paid too much. We'll talk to the guy who exposed this, or he represents the Taxpayers Alliance. This is a study by them. Their representative, William Yarwood, will join us after these messages. Stay exactly where you are.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Yeah, we're going to talk about these fat cats of the NHS in just a second. Before we do that, we need to talk about, well, the BBC generally. Gary Lineker's tearful farewell yesterday after his last ever match of the day after 26 years at the state broadcaster. Also, we need to talk about Hugh Edwards and the BBC's continued problems with their former in-house paedophile, their chief newsreader. Perhaps staff selection, bit of a problem, isn't it, at the state broadcaster? So many paedophiles seem to work there. Jimmy Savile, you name it. Rolf Harris, of course, Hugh Edwards, and on the list goes. Why so many paedophiles end up getting high-profile jobs at the BBC? What do you think that's all about? A bit strange, isn't it? But let's go straight over to campaign director for Defund the BBC, Rebecca Ryan. Morning, Rebecca.
Morning, Kevin.
Well, let's talk about Gary Lineker first. Lots made yesterday of his final match of the day thing. Very tearful. He made a hilarious joke at the beginning, which was a play on the fact that we didn't expect the Premier League season to end like this. So he begins with, "It wasn't meant to end like this." No, it wasn't, Gary. You're making a bit of a play, a bit of a joke about your own circumstances. No, your 26 years at the BBC wasn't meant to end with you leaving under an anti-Semitic cloud, was it, Gary? It wasn't supposed to end with you leaving having shared a disgustingly anti-Semitic post depicting Jewish people as rats. It wasn't supposed to end like that, was it? Why was it all smiley? Why was he even allowed that final match of the day after he once again shamed the BBC with a frankly disgracefully anti-Semitic post? He pretended he didn't know about the anti-Semitic imagery used by the Nazis to depict Jewish people as rats. Pretended he didn't know about that. Pleaded ignorance. 2 days before that, he'd given an interview to the Daily Telegraph in which he said it's very important to know your history. I don't believe him about the rat imagery, but this is what was missed as he waved us all a tearful farewell, the fact he's leaving in disgrace, having tweeted something anti-Semitic.
Absolutely, and this is the thing about him, is it's that sort of nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Oh, we all know that actually, you know, I'm being pressured by the powers that be, and actually, the North London dinner party set. We all agree that, you know, I haven't really done anything wrong, and that was the tone of it, wasn't it? And that's absolutely outrageous, because the fact is that he did retweet some vile anti-Semitism, which is an obvious trope. And if he's wading around in these political issues, which he has done throughout, you know, the whole course of his time, well, since he's been on Twitter anyway, wading into these debates and throwing his weight around on the back of a platform the BBC has given him at the cost of British taxpayers, then he absolutely should know. So this sort of nudge, nudge, wink, wink, oh, well, you know, is not okay. You know, he should have gone out gracefully. He should have, you know, fully apologised and taken that with the severity that it warrants. And he's just sort of removed all of that, hasn't he? But, you know, he's gone now, so.
Well, he's gone now, but I mean, the only reason I think that the BBC allowed him to leave, you know, with his head held high, you know, on this emotional farewell yesterday for his last match of the day is because the kind of sentiments, his outlook is profoundly anti-Israel. You know, others might say that, like so many other left-wing socialists, he's actually profoundly anti-Semitic. He would deny that. He would insist on his right to criticise Israel, and he would say that doesn't mean to say he's against Jewish people. Others may disagree. Now, when he says, though, you know, I've got a right to talk about, you know, human rights issues in the Gaza, etc. The reason I can say profoundly this guy is anti-Israel is while he's been so effusive on the social media about the horrors going on in Gaza, suffering of the children and of the starving, etc., etc., those poor Gazans, those poor Palestinians, after October the 7th, the worst atrocity against Jewish people, 1,200 of them killed since the Holocaust, he was completely silent, didn't tweet or say anything. So he doesn't think that's worthy of mention. But can't shut up about what's going on in Gaza now. So he's anti-Israel, and I think the only reason he got such lenient treatment at the BBC is his anti-Israel, arguably anti-Semitic tendencies prevail at Broadcasting House. That's what everybody else at the BBC thinks.
Absolutely, and it's, you know, it's fashionable in his sort of circles and in these sort of middle class circles to hold those views, and that's why sort of people continue to push this one side of a debate, which is clearly extremely complicated, and it's not for people who are just woke signaling to wade into and just be like, oh look, you know, this is we're going to support one side over the other. Clearly it's not a straightforward issue, otherwise it would have been resolved a long time ago. You know, this is not an issue that's just sort of cropped up recently, and he's just sort of waded into this on the back of this BBC platform, this huge platform that he's been given, and just behaved in an absolutely outrageous way where he thinks he can, as you say, take one side over the other and be spreading these anti-Semitic tropes. It's just absolutely awful. It's a very serious thing. We look after the massacre, the immediate backlash seemed to be against Israelis. It seemed to be against Jewish people, even though their people had just been massacred, hundreds of them, and the response from the BBC was pretty much, you know, oh well, you know, better make sure that Israel doesn't retaliate against the people of Gaza. It was they waded in a completely biased way, and Gary Lineker is just the complete pinnacle of that.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at that. We just showed the Instagram post that he shared, but from this group, the Palestine Lobby. It was like Zionism explained in 2 minutes or something. You look at it, massive great rat just underneath the main writing. Massive great rat. Now, he says, oh, I didn't have any idea that was a Nazi trope, a Nazi image for Jewish people. But you might think, well, what's that rat doing there? Shall I look that up? I think he knew exactly what the rat means, but he pretends he doesn't. He says he doesn't. But look at that rat there. Would you just go, oh, look, there's a massive great rat there. I won't bother looking that up. Come on. Who does he think he's kidding? He got away with this because a lot of people at the BBC think the same as him. Why has the BBC become such a hotbed of anti-Semitism? I don't know. It's something to worry about. Now, let's quickly, though, before you go, Rebecca, let's talk about another big problem that the BBC seems to have perennially, and that is with paedophiles, with its in-house paedophiles. The latest one, of course, being the chief newsreader, the man who announced the death of the Queen, Hugh Edwards, who is now a convicted paedophile, a child sex abuser. Good, isn't it? Now, after he was charged, a few people knew that he'd been charged. That was the head of news, Deborah Turnus, Tim Davie, the Director General, and a couple of other people. He was then paid £200,000 of his salary before they finally parted company. The BBC had been trying to get this money back from Hugh Edwards, saying, you owe us £200,000. He keeps saying, yeah, I'll give it to you, but then he never does. Now, when his problems first emerged a couple of years ago, Rebecca, this is, of course, when this family, these concerned parents said, your newsreader, your chief newsreader, is paying our kids tens of thousands of pounds to send him dirty pictures. 35,000 quid he has given to our son. Our son is vulnerable. He is a crack addict. Leave him alone. This, of course, became a massive problem for the BBC because they didn't do anything about it, because it was the mighty Hugh Edwards. When this family, this heartbroken family, demanded to see the top BBC executives for some kind of explanation, Tim Davie, we're told, suggested to other executives, can we tell this family, I'm going to take some annual leave, tell this family I'm unable to meet them because of my holiday. So there he is, you know, skipping out of confronting the family that his chief paedophile newsreader, the son of whom they abused. It's not a good look, is it?
It's absolutely awful. And this is the thing, you know, it was 3 weeks ago, we had Chairman Samir Shah saying that, you know, this period of the untouchables will come to an end. But he said, in the same speech, he also said that there wasn't this toxic culture, that actually it was okay, that there was just some people that were just sort of untouchable. It's not okay. It is a toxic culture. We've seen that the BBC did not take this complaint seriously. They obviously didn't think that it was worth him, you know, Tim Davie giving up any annual leave over. You know, he didn't take it seriously. And considering their history of scandals with paedophilia, you'd think they would be like, okay, the next time we hear anything about something similar to Jimmy Savile or Rolf Harris or whatever, we're going to take this seriously because we've learned our lesson. But absolutely they didn't, you know?
Yeah, but Tim Davie's instinct when this family, the parents of this kid that Hugh, I'm going to say kid, he was 17, 18, something like that, that Hugh Edwards gave him £35,000 basically to send him dirty pictures. And that kid went off and spent it on crack. Parents are saying to the BBC, please can you tell him to stop doing this? And the BBC tried, oh no, it's Hugh Edwards. No, oh, we can't get involved in this. And then when push came to shove and it all got rather critical, Tim Davie's idea was, why don't I run away on holiday so I don't actually have to speak to this family? That was his proposal. I mean, it's just not good enough, is it?
It's absolutely outrageous that the family were put through that. And at that point, the family were literally just wanting to protect their son and stop, you know, huge amounts of money being given so that he, you know, wouldn't end up killing himself on, you know, an overdose or something like that. You know, it's just, they're just trying to get it to stop. And as you say, the BBC's instinct was just to run away from it. And that's the thing that they need to stop doing. And this is they feel untouchable. And I don't believe that this sort of speech from the chairman is going to change anything. They're going to, you know, have zero tolerance on the untouchables, because we've seen, you know, even Tim Davie thought he could just run away from it. So it's just the culture won't change until this sort of permanent source of income that they have from the licence fee is removed. And that's why we would say get rid of the licence fee, make the BBC funded by people who actually want to pay for it. Those who choose to pay for it can, you know, pay for it. But the rest of us who don't want to be paying for paedophiles, you know, don't keep harassing us on our doorstep.
Absolutely. Before you go, Rebecca, let's have a look at Tim Davie talking to MPs about Hugh Edwards' salary. He got about 440 grand a year, I think it is. But as I say, he was overpaid after being charged with child sex offences by about 200 quid. He banked £200 after that. The BBC ever since has been trying to get the money back. He won't give it to them. I say sue him, breach of contract. Take him to court, but they haven't got the guts. Anyway, here's Davie talking to MPs.
What is the current status of the BBC's attempt to recover the £200,000 of salary paid to Mr Edwards for that period post his arrest until his resignation? Has that money been returned?
No, we've made the formal request. And I can't go into too much detail, but discussions are underway. But I've got no further news apart from the BBC's position is clear. The money should be returned, and we've made the request.
Okay. Did you set a deadline?
I don't believe we set a deadline. But we do expect to make progress and get an answer.
Okay. And if Mr Edwards is not forthcoming in repaying that money, you have already resolved that you will endeavour to pursue recovery of that money through a sort of legal process?
Well, we will explore that, but that is, as I said, I've said on record, I think that is challenging. Sure. I think at the moment the position is very clear. We've made that request to Mr Edwards, and that's where we sit. Our management position is, and supported by the board, is very clear.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Tim, grow a pair, sue him, breach a contract. Thank you very much to Rebecca Ryan. Thanks, Rebecca. Good to talk to you, as always. Campaign director there of Defund the BBC. A couple of texts on this very issue before we go to break. This is from Lorraine. The BBC disgracefully gave Lineker a 10-minute tribute during Match of the Day. This man was made out to be a hero. The man made an outrageous anti-Semitic post, and never forget, he failed to condemn the butchering of Israelis on October the 7th. Celebrating such a man simply highlights the anti-Semitic stance of the BBC, who continue to mislead the public on the conflict and refuse to call Hamas a terrorist organisation. Lorraine, that pretty much sums it up. Brilliant text. What do we got here? Yeah. This is from Jeff. He's in France, actually. He said he'd rather give the licence fee to the NHS than the BBC. They'll probably waste it as well. But yeah, let's take the licence fee, give it to the NHS instead, and stop paying all those middle managers. We'll be talking about those middle managers and how much money they get after this break. Stay tuned.
I can't afford it. I mean, that's £3.5 billion a year, I think, to scrap that. And, you know, the public finances are already in total mess. I mean, I think the deficit this year is something like £160 billion. It would have been 110 billion. Well, it was 110 billion forecast to be when Rachel Reeves took over. She's already taxing and spending phenomenal amounts of money. She just can't afford it. The taxpayer can't afford it.
What would you do about the winter fuel allowance?
We'll reverse it. We've already said we would.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm in for the great Mike Graham. He's away sunning himself for a few well-deserved days off. Good for him. He'll be back on Wednesday, so you'll have to put up with me tomorrow as well. Hope that's not too painful for you. It's not painful for me at all once I sort of get here. I'm not in a brilliant mood when the alarm goes off at 3:30. I'm going to be honest with you. I felt better than that. But now I'm here. Once I get here, it's a privilege and an honour and a joy to be with you all. So thank you very much for tuning in. Let's talk about a story we've been featuring all day. And let's talk to the organisation that brought this scandal to our attention. We're talking about the fat cats who work for the NHS. It's not an unknown syndrome, but it's been brought into sharp focus today, all over the front page, thanks to the Taxpayers Alliance. And the story is 1,700 middle managers at the NHS earn more than 100,000. 300,000 earn more. Sorry, 300 managers earn more than 200,000. Quite a lot more, I know, earn more than 300, 400, 500,000. They're all earning a fortune, and 512 of them earn more than the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister gets 173 grand a year. 512 middle managers at the NHS doing jobs that you probably would struggle to describe earn more than the man who runs the country. Is it just me, or is there something insane about this situation? As I say, this information comes to us thanks to an excellent organisation, the Taxpayers Alliance. And on behalf of the Taxpayers Alliance, here's William Yarwood. Hi, William.
Good morning, Kevin. Great to see you on the morning show. How are you finding it?
Well, you know, I'm finding it very early. No, it's great fun to be here. But very quickly, William, I mean, we knew this was going on, but every time it gets listed in sharp focus, it's quite shocking, isn't it? There can be no justification for, what is it, 512 middle managers earning more than the Prime Minister, 300 on more than £200,000 a year. And we know there's quite a few on more than 300, more than 400. There are people working for the NHS on more than £500,000 a year. But this is shocking, and this from an organisation that constantly complains it hasn't got enough money. Take all this money away from these mysterious, medically unqualified middle managers and give it to doctors and nurses. Hire more doctors, hire more nurses, pay them more money, and stop paying all this money, wasting all this money on mysterious middle managers. You just don't deserve this kind of cash. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, totally, Kev. I mean, the one interesting thing is that these things are not even remotely linked to performance at all. So, like, one of the highest chief executive salaries we have is from the University Hospitals Plymouth, where their chief executive earned, drumroll please, £382,500. And guess what? This trust was ranked 95th out of 136 in England for A&E waiting times. Well, you know, where's the performance link there? What is that 382 grand for?
Yeah, exactly right. And some of these people are getting bonuses. You know, nobody in the NHS, no one should be getting bonuses because that organisation is just failing. It's failing on every single level. So no bonuses and no more of these ridiculous salaries. I mean, apart from all of these middle managers being paid this, we know there are 800 diversity officers in the NHS. That costs £40 million a year. They are wasting zillions of pounds unnecessarily on members of staff that they don't need. I mean, you know, West Streeting says, oh, wait, you know, we're going to sort of root and branch top to bottom. There's no proposals to do anything about this. And when you say, what about all this money? Too many people, to my mind, they go, well, it is a lot, but it's just a drop in the ocean in terms of the billions of pounds, the £180 billion a year the NHS get. Well, it's more than a drop in the ocean, and it's a start. Stop it. Stop saying it's a drop in the ocean and stop it. How about that?
Yeah, completely. I really hate that argument, when it's especially levelled at us guys at the TPA. Whenever we complain about anything like this, they go, "Oh, it's a drop in the ocean. It's just a few 100,000, just a few million." So, oh, okay, it's just a few 100 million, just a few billion, right? Oh, it's not a big deal. But actually, yeah, it matters because it shows you where the incentives are inside public services like this one. The NHS constantly whinges about having no money. There's constantly complaints about cuts in this area and cuts in that area, while senior managers are sitting on salaries of £200,000 or £300,000. Maybe they should look in the mirror and recognise that actually all the money that they need to go towards frontline services is actually going into their back pockets, and they should give it back.
Exactly right. I mean, it is crazy, and as I say, this organisation constantly moans it hasn't got enough money. But everywhere you look, it's not just these middle management salaries. Everywhere you look in the NHS, you see unconscionable waste. They waste so much money. I mean, I know this is a minor point, but they still spend money on fax machines. They really, really do. And if that doesn't sum up just how badly wrong this organisation is going, I don't know what does. Brilliant to speak to you, William, as always. William Yalwood from the Taxpayers Alliance. Much still to come. We've got the news coming up. It's been really good to have your company, and we're going to be talking about generally politics after the news, so stay tuned for that. We have much still to come. Travel as well, Travel Chaos Bank Holiday. Stay tuned for that.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's the one show where you do not have to be worried about judgmental people because we'll do all the judging for you.
Let's just have a look at how Humsley Useless is now spending his time.
There goes your career, mate.
Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in. He's jumping there. There he goes. He goes over the bar.
Hello,
and
lady.
unfortunately, it catches on his Johnson.
If he's plank of the week, he's got a sizable plank.
And apparently,
that's a whole different show.
Plank of the Week, Fridays at 7 on Talk.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and I've got a message for you. Welcome back to this blockbuster edition of What Just Happened. It really is a good one, I think. It's so funny.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Final hour of this morning's Morning Glory. Mike Graham is away at a glamorous destination having a very, very good time. He'll be back with you on Wednesday morning. I will be in again tomorrow morning. You'll have to suffer me for another day. I've got a lovely text here from Gary Whittle. He said, great show, Kev. You are the perfect stand-in for the great MG. Very interesting topics too. That's all I'm trying to do. Mike does a brilliant show. I'm just trying to do it a bit like him. Won't be as good, but I'm doing my best. You don't fix what isn't broken, and the Morning Glory is far from broken. So I hope you're finding me a decent stand-in for the great Mike Graham as he enjoys a bit of sunshine. Probably a few drinks as well, knowing him while he's away. All the best, Mike. He'll be back with you Wednesday morning, as I say. In a little while, I'm going to be talking about the post office scandal. Alan Bates, or Sir Alan Bates, now revealing that his compensation claim for having his life ruined, along with all those other hundreds of sub-postmasters and sub-postmistresses who were so cruelly mistreated in one of the worst miscarriages of justice in British history, For some reason, we're still demonising these people, still treating them badly. Alan Bates, of all people, has been told, you can have half of the compensation you're claiming. So he's been offered half what he thinks that his ordeal is worth, and been told, this is Sir Alan Bates, Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. Not a guy you want to mix with, I'll be honest. And they've told, if you don't like it, you can like it or lump it. Put up with it. That's the you're going to get half the money. You can take it or leave it. I mean, why are we treating these people like this still? And what's happening to, for example, the chief executive, Paula Venables? Who has had her CBE taken away. She's lost her honours and obviously had to leave that job. She presided over this terrible miscarriage of justice where all these sub-postmasters and sub-postmistresses who'd done nothing wrong were sometimes sent to jail. They were vilified. They were, of course, prosecuted, fined. One sub-postmistress had to give birth chained to her hospital bed because she was in jail for a crime she did not commit, because the post office said, no, computer says no. Computer says that you've done this. You've done this. It must be you. It wasn't the computer. It was the computer. So what's happening to the executives who presided over this miscarriage of justice? That's what I want to know. We'll be talking about that in a little while. And also, Simon Calder, travel correspondent from the Independent Travel Corps extraordinaire, will join us later on in the hour because, of course, it's bank holiday. And what does bank holiday mean? Travel chaos. So we'll be talking about that later on in the hour, taking some of your calls as well. Get on the phone if you're now waking up. 0344 499 1000. Let me know about some of the issues we've been talking about this morning. Now, let's go straight over to my next guest, Tory peer and pollster, Lord Robert Hayward. We'll go through some of the big stories of today with him. Good morning, Lord Hayward.
Good morning. Can I just, before you go on to other things, say about Sir Alan Bates?
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of listening to him up close, and he is truly one of the most modest, calm, reasonable people I've ever had the pleasure to meet. If he says something's wrong, it is wrong, because he doesn't rant, he doesn't get carried away. He's just so incredibly measured and pleasant. All the attention has done nothing to his ego, his personality. It's just natural.
Well said, Lord Hayward. And as I say, if nothing else, if I was the post office or I was the authorities, I wouldn't be mixing with Alan Bates. And it seems like they're treating him badly. They're treating so many more of these sub-post mistresses and masters badly. I don't know what it is. Give it up. Pay these people the compensation they deserve, and let's move on. Let's put this stain on British history behind us, and yet we still seem to be treating them badly. Sir Alan Bates, of all people, literally told, well, you're getting half what you want, and you can take it or leave it. And as I say, I think there are executives who presided over this miscarriage of justice at the BBC who deserve to face justice themselves. We haven't seen that yet, but thank you for that, and well said. Can I ask you, Lord Hayward, what do you make of what I think is a rather humiliating situation that America today, the State Department over there, has officially confirmed in an official statement that they are monitoring Britain over the Lucy Connolly case, that they are very worried about that housewife who got 31 months for a few nasty words on Twitter. They think that her very condition is the epitome of what's going wrong in this country, and that freedom of speech and freedom of expression is at danger. And any Prime Minister, in my view, who presides over a justice system that sends people to jail for things they write on social media needs to have a word with himself.
Well, I think people should be liable for things that they do or say, whether it's on Twitter or whatever it may happen to be. But I think there's a much bigger issue here, and that is that the convention is that where one's dealing with Western democracies, you do not interfere with the internal affairs of state of another country. And I'm afraid, yet again, President Trump is interfering.
He's got a point, though, hasn't he? He's got a point. He's got a point about freedom of speech here.
He has. But
so what's wrong with that? Never mind about never mind about these ridiculous conventions. America, the cradle of freedom of speech, of the world freedom of speech, is worried about freedom of expression in Britain. It really, really is worried. That's a humiliation for me. I don't care about international conventions.
Unfortunately, Donald Trump regularly gets his facts wrong. And
well, he's not wrong about this, though, is he? Well, is he? Is he? Is he wrong?
Kevin, in terms of detail...
Well, is he wrong? Is he wrong that freedom of speech is at risk here in this country? It is. We have a Prime Minister who's sending people to jail for tweets, for God's sake. Don't you think that rather crosses the line?
Kevin, you're wrong.
No. Oh, you think it's okay to go to jail for tweets?
No, let me finish. The Prime Minister has sent nobody to jail. The decision is a decision of the courts.
Yeah, right. Completely independent. No influence from the Prime Minister. No offence, Lord Hayward, but were you born yesterday?
I shall not take offence at the observation. Don't worry. I used to be a rugby referee. I'm used to all sorts of comments being thrown at me from both the touchline in particular. But as I say, it's a decision of the courts.
Yeah.
We as politicians, including myself, frame the laws. We hand them down to the judiciary. It's the judiciary that then operates the laws, and it's not.
Well, why did they all come to? Why did all those?
Sorry.
No. Let me finish.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
It's not therefore right for you to say that the Prime Minister has sent anybody to prison.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It's absolutely right for me to say it. It's absolutely right. The spectre of Keir Starmer hung over all those grotesquely disproportionate prosecutions. A housewife hundreds of miles away puts a few nasty words on Twitter and she gets 31 months. You don't think that's anything to do with the Prime Minister? Let me tell you, Lord Hayward, every single citizen in this country thinks it's everything to do with the Prime Minister. This guy is the enemy of freedom of speech, and people went to jail for tweets, for God's sake. What is going on?
If I have substantial disagreements with Keir Starmer, particularly over things that he did when he was director of public prosecutions. And therefore, I'm quite happy to have that conversation about his role in cases that took place at his time. But in terms of judgments by courts in this country, they are decisions taken on the basis of laws which I and Keir Starmer and every other politician have scrutinised and then passed.
Yes, well, we don't accept that. We, the people of this country, simply do not accept that. That is claptrap from the body politic in Westminster, and we are sick of it. We're sick of it. We're not taking this anymore. We have a Prime Minister who is the enemy of freedom of speech. He instructed those courts. We know what went on. Don't kid us, Lord Hayward. It's good to talk to you seriously. Stay where you are, because I have to bring in my next guest. That's Kieran Mullen MP, who is the Shadow Justice Minister, of course. Kieran, thank you for joining us. You've just heard that rather spirited discussion that I've been having. The American government, White House, is now monitoring us, particularly about the Lucy Connolly case. They believe that Lucy Connolly doing 31 months for a tweet is an assault on freedom of speech, an assault on freedom of expression. They're also very worried about the way we're treating anti-abortion demonstrators. America is now monitoring Britain because of our approach to freedom of speech. They're worried about our Prime Minister and his suppression of freedom of expression, and that's worrying because that's the sort of monitoring they do of North Korea, of Myanmar, of Russia, of China, and now we're in that bracket. Kind of worrying.
I think Lord Hayward set out the position quite effectively there. The Prime
You're
Minister
not going to
himself-
buy into that rubbish as well, are you?
Well, I think it's clear that the Prime Minister has not had a personal involvement
Oh,
in any.
come on. You're the
decisions.
opposition. Give it a go. Be the opposition.
Being an opposition is also about being credible and making sure that you're.
Yeah, well, I'm being credible. You're being incredible.
I don't think comparing.
You don't think there's anything unusual about what happened to all those suspects after the summer riots, amid the summer riots. You don't think there's anything unusual that while most suspects wait 2 years before they come to court, those guys and those women were all in court within about 2 days, sentenced in jail, but within 5 days. You don't think there's anything unusual about that? You don't think the Prime Minister's got anything to do with that? You're supposed to be the opposition. Oppose!
As I said, our position is about being credible and not just opposing.
So you're fully in favour of what's happened to Lucy Connolly, are you? Are you in favour of what Lucy?
If you let me get a word and you let me actually finish a sentence, I'll talk to you about the areas in which I understand why the public are concerned. Because I think what the public do rightly raise is the contrast. Because actually what we saw last week was the Labour Party, and this is Labour policy, and this is the Prime Minister, saying that at the same time they want to make it so that rapists, child abusers, killers get out of jail even earlier than they already do. And so I think that's when people then have a question about, well, where's the proportionality, where's the balance? I do understand why the judiciary, and I think this is the judiciary, not the government, why the judiciary, when there's a public order issue, when there's a risk of widespread disorder, when we're seeing hotels being attacked and other things like that, that they want to send a very clear message to the public in the short term that this has to stop. And that's a reasonable approach to take in the round. That doesn't mean that each and every case is going to be one that the public think, well, that's
let me get this straight, though, if I may, Kieran. The Tory party the Tory opposition party is right behind the 31-month sentence for Lucy Connolly and the fact that her appeal against the grotesque severity of that sentence failed. The Tory party is fully in favour of that, are they? Yes or no? Are you in favour of it?
I don't think anybody listening to what I've just said would have interpreted it as...
Well, what is your position? Are you in favour of Lucy Connolly's condition, her situation? Are you in favour of the 31-month sentence and the failure of her appeal? Where do the stories stand? Because if you are supporting that, I think our listeners will be very interested.
So I think what we understand.
Tell me what is your stance on Lucy Connolly, please?
Kevin, as much as you might want me to boil down complex issues into yes or no answers, I'm not going to do that. I've set out the clear understanding we have of why people feel there hasn't been proportionality when it comes to some of these cases. In Lucy's case,
Connolly, what is the Tory? Your leader, Kemi Badenoch, says that her sentence is grotesque and she should be released. What about you?
What Kemi said?
Kemi Badenoch said that. Are you contradicting your leader?
No, what Kemi said was, we understand why people are concerned about that case, and that particularly the decision not to allow her to have overnight visitation was particularly concerning, and that actually we pointed out that Lucy does have routes to appeal that to the prison governor, and actually what Kemi said is it is all about proportionality.
So you're all in favour of the sentence. The Tories support the 31 months for Lucy Connolly. Yep.
Well, as I said,
yes.
It's about proportionality.
It's a yes or no.
It's not, I'm afraid. It's about proportionality. I understand why people are concerned.
How do you think this appearance is going for you, Kieran?
I think it's not
going very well, is it? It's not going very well, is it?
I'm not sure.
Honestly, you're so out of step with what the people of this country are thinking.
I'm not sure.
Look, I'm just saying, mate. I'm just saying, Kieran.
You seem not let them say very much.
You seem like a nice guy, but let me tell you, you don't really understand. You don't seem to understand the principles of opposition. Stop supporting Keir Starmer and start opposing him. It would really help.
You're just going to rant the whole way through. I think the benefit of an interview that listeners want to hear what other people have to say. If you want to stick to a monologue, please feel free to do that. But I think actually listeners want to hear different perspectives. I've been very clear. I absolutely understand the concerns around proportionality. I've given you really concrete examples of where we're opposing this Labour government with its plans to let out some of the worst offenders, rapists, child molesters. Let those people out earlier. We've been clear in our opposition to that.
I'm with you there, Kieran. Absolutely.
Individual cases is there is a convention, I understand, where you have to be more reticent in looking at individual cases. I also think there has been some misrepresentation of what the case was originally about. There are, of course, restrictions on freedom of speech, whatever the platform, and we have always had, and America has restrictions on freedom of speech. You can't say whatever you want without consequence if that leads to violence and unrest, and those are reasonable laws to have in place. There's sometimes ones that are difficult to get the balance right on, and the judiciary will sometimes make mistakes in that regard. But what I can be clear about is, as I said, there is no ambiguity about letting out rapists,
I'm with you, Kieran. Yeah, you said that.
And that's where Labour are really causing people to query,
totally
because they
agree with you
compare
there.
the two cases, and I understand why they compare those two types of cases and feel very frustrated. I agree with them.
Kieran Mullen, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on. Let's quickly go back to Lord Robert Hayward. Lord Hayward, I'm having quite a few rows, aren't I? First with you and now with Kieran Mullen. What did you make of that? I mean,
are you enjoying this morning?
Well, yeah, you know, I've got up with a spring in my step. I don't know why, but what did you think of that? I mean, are you with what Kieran Mullen was saying there?
In broad terms, yes. You were raising the question of the role of an opposition. An opposition has to oppose where it should do so on a credible and considered basis. It does not just enter into knee-jerk reaction to one thing or another under whatever the circumstances. It's a role of an opposition, whether it was the Labour Party previously or the Conservative Party or whoever it may happen to be, because at the end of the day, a political party has to be able to stand up at an election and say, this is what we believe in, and here's the details associated with it, not a one-sentence headline.
Lord Hayward, really good to talk to you. And by the way, I really appreciated your comments about Alan Bates at the beginning of this conversation. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Lord Robert Hayward there, Tory peer and pollster, and Kieran Mullen, Shadow Justice Minister. I mean, what did you guys get? Tell me what you thought about that. I'm just trying to get, not so much Lord Hayward, because, you know, he's an eminent Lord peer these days, but Kieran Mullen, you know, he's an opposition cabinet minister. He's the Shadow Justice Minister. And he won't say that it's wrong for Lucy Connolly to be doing 31 months. He won't say that it's wrong that her appeal failed. So if the Tories aren't going to say this about this Labour government, about Keir Starmer and his suppression of freedom of speech, his suppression of freedom of expression, if the Tories aren't going to climb on that bandwagon, what chance do we have? We have to leave it to Reform UK. I mean, Lucy Connolly should not be doing 31 months. Why won't the Tories agree with me? What do you think about that? 03444991000. If you prefer, you can leave a WhatsApp voice note. We'll play that out, or you can send me a text. So let me know what you feel about that. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the aforementioned Mr. Bates, Sir Alan Bates now, of course, Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. Well, it's round two. The guy, along with all these other hundreds of sub-postmasters and mistresses who got convicted, miscarriage of justice, some of them sent to jail. I always remember the pregnant woman who had to give birth while in prison behind bars. You know, didn't do anything wrong. Now, all of these people are now claiming the vast amounts of compensation that they utterly deserve. They had their lives ruined, vilified, treated like common criminals. It wasn't their fault, it was a computer. Alan Bates reveals yesterday in the Sunday Times that I've asked for my compensation. They've offered me a half and told me I can take it or leave it. Why are we still treating these people like that? We'll talk about that when we come back. Stay where you are.
When he said he was going to stop the boats, we didn't think it was the fishing boats.
But
That's
the
what he appears to have done.
The French always come in at the 1 minute to midnight in any negotiation.
Yeah.
This is their old tactic. The fact that the Labour Party were taken by surprise by this is just miraculous. You know, he sold out pensioners, he sold out small businesses, sold out farmers, and now he's sold out the fishermen.
Yeah.
This is a man who's trying to desperately get back the Red Wall from this existential crisis.
Right.
He's talking like Enoch Powell 1 minute, now he's Captain
I
Europe.
know.
He's totally
I know.
schizophrenic.
It's totally schizophrenic.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I got lots of texts about Lucy Connolly and my disputes there with Lord Robert Hayward, Tory peer and pollster, saying that the decisions against those 385 people who were convicted with indecent haste after those Southport riots, summer riots, you know, like everybody else went in 2 years. Those guys in court charged within about 2 days, in court in 3 days, in prison in 4 days. Oh, no, nothing different. No, nothing to do with Keir Starmer. Oh, no. I mean, these politicians, what do you think? As I said to Lord Hayward, what do you think I was? Born yesterday, and then Kieran Mullen, who's supposed to be the shadow justice minister, a member of the opposition. Oh, no, we don't oppose the... essentially, he wouldn't say that the Tories are against the 31-month sentence, the grotesquely disproportionate sentence handed down to poor Lucy Connolly. I'm not sure that's Tory policy. I think Kieran Mullen may have a few words mentioned to him today. Kemi Badenoch's against it, but Kieran Mullen seems to think it's fine. What did you think about this? I mean, come on. Let's talk to Claire in the Wirral. Hello, Claire.
Hello, Kevin. Brilliant interview with Lord Robert Hayward and
Kieran Mullen, yeah.
Kieran Mullen. I thought that was brilliant. You were like a dog with a bone.
Well, my point is that they're supposed to be the opposition. You know, and they don't even, Claire, seem to recognise, seem to understand that actually there are millions of people all over this country who are furious about this poor woman still being in jail. They don't seem to understand that. I mean, what is wrong with them?
Well, I think the thing that's wrong with them is that they are woke. You know, they are the opposition, but this is what happened to the opposition. They lost the election because they were woke. They didn't want free speech either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's no good, Kevin, I'm afraid, but you've actually proven a point. And actually, this minister, what's his name?
What you mean Kieran Mullen, the Shadow Justice Minister?
Mullen,
yeah.
this minister.
Yeah. I know what you're thinking. Yeah, no, me neither. Never heard of him before, but yeah.
He actually went against
what Kemi Badenoch said. Yeah.
She's actually stated. So this actually proves that the Labour Party is split. And you know,
the Tories too. Yeah. The Tories too.
Exactly, Kevin. They're not going to get anywhere. The Labour Party. The Tory party are not going to get anywhere if they are so split. And they're actually talking against their leader, Kemi Badenoch. This is what this shadow minister did. He would not actually stand up for the leader of his
own party. Kemi Badenoch, I think, has been very sound on this. She recognises the injustice of this grotesquely disproportionate sentence against someone who just posted a few nasty words on Twitter. Kemi recognises it, but Kieran Mullen, her shadow justice minister, doesn't seem to. And Lord Robert Hayward was a bit hazy on it as well. If the Tories can't oppose this, then they're in bigger trouble than I thought. Claire, fantastic to talk to you as always. Keep in touch, I know you will. Claire in the Wirral. Well, let's quickly go straight to my next guest. We need to talk about the post office scandal, Mr Bates versus the post office. If you like, we're now in round two. He's won the case. but the post office won't pay him the compensation he deserves. Let's talk to the son of a wrongly convicted postmaster. That's Varchas Patel. Hi, Varchas. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you, Kevin?
I'm good. Now, you will have seen the Sunday Times tomorrow. Sir Alan Bates, actually, as he is now, the man who led this amazing campaign for justice for the victims, hundreds of them, the victims of the worst miscarriage of justice in British history, the post office scandal. Now, Alan got them to the point where the government, the post office, everyone accepted, national, you know, after that public inquiry especially, that great wrong had been done to people like is it your dad or your mother?
My father, yes.
Yeah, like your dad. So we got to that point. Now we're learning that they won't pay the compensation that people like Alan Bates, probably your dad as well, deserve. They won't pay them. So Alan Bates, of all people, they said, right, you're getting half of what you want, take it or leave it. Why is it that they want to continue demonising the poor victims of this great injustice? Why are they still treating the sub-postmasters and sub-postmistresses so badly, Varchas?
There's no simple answer to this. I mean, the one thing that struck me when I read the Sunday Times yesterday was, if Alan Bates is being treated like this, and being offered less than 50% of his expertly calculated claim, can you imagine those sub-postmasters or sub-postmistresses, how they are being treated, who are not as lawyered up as Sir Alan Bates?
And your dad, did he get the compensation he wanted?
No. And my father's quantum hasn't even been quantified yet. The post office have recently put another spanner in the works by saying they will not pay for the expert reports, which they promised. So it's been 4.5 years since my father's exoneration in a court of law. We genuinely had high hopes that this would be behind us in a couple of years or so. But we are 4.5 years on, and his claim hasn't even been quantified yet. And and other sub-postmasters I know are in similar situations, sadly.
Did your father, Varchas, did your father go to jail, or was he just fined, sort of thing?
He luckily he did not go to jail, but he was convicted. He was given an electronic tag, which was very
that in itself, that's just so dreadful for a crime he didn't commit. How was that for you? It must be the most hellish experience in life, that there you are, vilified, convicted, you know, treated like a two-bit criminal, and you know you didn't do it. How does your dad feel, and how do you feel about all these executives who have yet to be punished for presiding over this injustice, for saying, oh, these 700 postmasters and sub-postmistresses, they're all lying because the computer must be right. Paula Venables, the then chief executive, remains a free lady, no problem, hasn't had her collar felt yet. When are the likes of Paula Venables and the other executives who presided over this horrific saga, when are they going to face justice?
Sadly, I think that is still some time away. For example, when the inquiry does publish its first half of its report sometime this year, that will focus on the human impact and the compensation issues. And then we will get to part 2 of the report perhaps next year. And I am in no doubt the likes of Paula Venables and other senior executives will be heavily criticized and potentially may face criminal charges.
Well, she deserves criminal charges. She deserves to be done. You know, the fact that the people, in a sense, responsible for all these wrongful convictions, you know, presided over this just horrific saga. The fact that none of them have faced any justice at all is a disgrace.
I mean, I'll tell you, because you asked me a question about how I felt and how father felt. Father is just Yeah, he keeps his cool. He's quite a cool and guy, but he's very annoyed. He's very angry because his life has been shattered, and the likes of Paula Venables and my father's investigators roam the world freely, without any financial issues, and they're quite well looked after, sadly, by the post office. Even given, in some cases, legal representation when it came to the inquiry. How I feel, I am livid. I mean, I see my father's health over the past year, ever since I started speaking out on his behalf. It's gradually getting worse. He's getting weaker. I'll give you an example. He struggles to climb upstairs.
How old is he now, Vartas?
He turns 72 later on this year, and he's disabled. And post office knows my father has various severe health conditions, and it's as if they just want my father just to die.
It's terrible, Vartas. We're going to watch this story. We'll keep in touch with you. Give your dad our very best. And this is the tragedy of what's happened. Every single one of these post office sub-postmistresses and sub-postmasters, they've had their lives absolutely ruined. Absolutely ruined. So the compensation for having your life ruined is off the scale. They shouldn't be penny pinching on this. Totally wrong. Thanks to Vartas Patel, the son of a wrongly convicted postmaster there in the post office scandal. After the break, well, we've got Simon Calder, the doyen of travel correspondents, the Independence man, of course. It's bank holiday, so therefore there must be bank holiday travel chaos. Also, South Western Railway is our first renationalised train service. That started yesterday with a replacement bus. I'm old enough to remember nationalised train services. You think that the timekeeping of our trains, of our stations, has been bad over the last few years? You wait until they renationalise everything. You won't know what hit you. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Right, let's talk about transport. It is, of course, a bank holiday, therefore there's bound to be a bank holiday travel chaos. But first, let's talk about Britain's first renationalised train service. That's down in the southwest. Pictures of Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, on the platform, looking very pleased with herself. We've bought our own train service, Great British Railways, for the government. So the government's now running that service. So let's go over to the doyen of all travel correspondents, the Independent's great man, Simon Calder. Morning, Simon.
Good morning, and very kind of you. And yes, I was on that first train with Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary. It was the 6:14 from London Waterloo. The Department for Transport officials have been very careful that they weren't going to be on the very first train, because that was one which ran from Woking to Surbiton, and then everybody had to pile onto a bus after that.
That was the first one. That was the first one. So there's a replacement bus on the very first renationalised train.
Absolutely, but the Transport Secretary and I were on the 6:14, the first train from London for the renationalised South-Western Railway, which was an interesting experience.
What do you mean by that? Was it on time?
It was perfectly on time. It was perfectly well run. It had rather more people than you would expect on a Sunday morning during a bank holiday weekend on a commuter line like that, basically because all these officials and ministers and everything were there. But it started and it went, and it was painted in the colours of Great British Railways. And the thing is about Great British Railways that this doesn't exist yet. It will be brought in 2027. And for those of you who use the 24-hour clock, that's not nearly 8:30. It's 2 years from now. And once it is, then that is going to be, well, you can't call it British Rail Mark II. The Transport Secretary is very, very clear about that. But it kind of looks like British Rail. It's going to be an arm-length body, slightly separate from the government. And the idea is that you unite the whole rail network, the track and the train, or if you prefer, the wheels and the steel, and everything is much better than it was. Although I can absolutely assure you, if you're going to be on the platform in Woking or Wimbledon or Winchester tomorrow, travelling into London for your normal commute, it's going to be exactly the same. Same stuff, same prices, same
same trains. I mean, there's the same trains.
Very much same trains. Yes, absolutely. But and a lot of people still feel their rail ticket is still.
Well, I was going to ask you that, Simon. Let's broach this tricky subject. The Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander, your fellow passenger, hailing a new dawn for the railways, but stopping short of promising lower ticket prices. So nationalisation isn't going to result in better bargains for us in terms of our sky-high rail tickets.
No, the best hope that you can look forward to is that if this magic renationalisation works and you do actually get more reliable services as a result, then what will happen is that more and more people will say, oh, the trains are great, I'm going to go back to them. And if you get increased revenue like that, then you might be able to do things with ticket prices. But the railways are costing the taxpayers of Britain £400 per second, okay, £12.5 billion a year. And if you did want to reduce ticket prices, the only place that would come from is from the from the taxpayer. And everybody knows, by the way, in the railways, and they have done for decades, that the fare system is not fit for purpose. And for instance, today you might be travelling from Bristol to London. You would be mad to buy a ticket from Bristol to London because you can get the Didcot Dodge, and that will reduce the cost of your trip by splitting your ticket at a leafy station in Oxfordshire. So it's completely mad. But if you did reform the fare system and made it revenue neutral, which Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, would insist upon, i.e. you bring in the same amount of cash, then some fares would go down, some fares would stay the same, other fares would go up, and that would be politically toxic, which is why no minister has dared do it for the past few decades, even though everybody knows that they should.
Yeah, and if you recall the days of British Rail, I mean, the timetables were a sort of irrelevant sideshow that they just didn't even bother looking at. So hopefully they've renationalised South West Rail. I think they have plans to do more. Hopefully this will result on at least all people want from their railways is the trains running on time. If they can do that, if nationalisation achieves that, I'm all for it, but I have my doubts.
Well, look, I completely share those, but I did talk to the rail minister, Lord Peter Hendy, who basically just explained that at the moment, or up until yesterday, if you were South Western Railway and there was a problem involving Network Rail, which meant your trains didn't run, then instead of just sitting around the table and working out how you were going to fix it, there was a big kind of legal argument about, well, we need compensation for this, otherwise our shareholders will suffer. You get rid of that, suddenly, if everybody is simply focused on, let's get Kevin to his destination on time, things might get better. That is the best we can hope for, and let's hope it will work. I mean, there's good examples of well-run railways around the world that are in the state sector. But yeah, people who will remember British Rail wasn't particularly impressive.
Yeah,
I don't think.
I am old enough to remember British Rail, and those of you who are not old enough to remember it, you're very lucky. Let's hope that renationalising the railways this time isn't as disastrous as the last time. Now, just quickly before you go though, Simon, it is bank holiday. I'll admit I haven't got the details here, but I have got a little note saying bank holiday travel chaos. That's a story in The Sun. What is the chaos today? Where are the hot spots to look out for?
Okay, so one of them is actually exactly where I am in West London, where the Piccadilly line is not running.
Oh,
for
I
the
know about
vast
this. I wasn't able to get it yesterday when I went to Fulham, but yeah, go on.
So it's not running from Hammersmith to Cockfosters, which is almost all of it. So you can, if you were travelling in or out of Heathrow Airport, make it as far as Hammersmith, but then you're going to have to think of plan B. And I've just been on the tube and it's all vastly overpacked with people because they haven't got enough trains. Elsewhere in the country, we're going to make this London-centric. There's work on Transpennine link in Dewsbury in West Yorkshire. That's causing problems. And all week, from now until next Monday, the line, the Trent Valley line on the West Coast main line that races normally from Nuneaton across to Stafford, well, that is closed. You've got rail replacement buses, but actually most trains are going to be threading their way through Birmingham, so they'll take typically an hour longer, and that's not going to be great. But of course, the hope is that things can only get better, and these planned rail engineering works will improve your journey. We'll see about that. Elsewhere, check before you travel. And on the roads, well, it's going to be busy coming back from Calais into Dover. All the checks for leaving France and arriving in the UK are done on the French side of the channel. So I'm seeing queues building there, particularly a bit later on in the day. And if you do make it back to Blighty, then watch out for the M25 inevitably around both the Dartford crossing and the southwestern quadrant, Gatwick around to Heathrow and up to the M40. And the M5, everyone's been in beautiful Devon and Cornwall, so they're all heading back to towards Bristol, towards Birmingham on the M5. And bear in mind that actually this week it's going to be relatively quiet in commuter times because the schools are mostly on holiday. But by next weekend, it's going to be very messy indeed. So be prepared for yet more delays, I'm afraid. As always, with any kind of travel involving the UK, hope for the best, but be prepared for delays and disruption.
Wise words, Simon. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much. That's Simon Kohler, travel correspondent for The Independent, with a roundup of the new nationalised rail service. Went without a hitch, except you had to get off and get a replacement bus service, so that wasn't too hot. And also all the travel chaos that we traditionally experience there. If you're having trouble getting over from Calais on the ferry, you can always take one of the very reliable small boats that go across constantly full of migrants. So climb aboard one of them, and when you get back, you get a free hotel as well. So it can't be too bad, can it? Right, next up, we'll play a few of the highlights of this show. That shouldn't take very long. Take some of your calls. I'll read some of your messages. So stick around, folks.
Let's talk about this. I think it's fair to say, Duncan, that the Conservative Party is in free fall at the moment. And I was watching Kemi Badenoch at PMQs on Wednesday. Yep. She was better.
She was better.
I don't think she landed any great punches. And actually, she's against a terrible performer anyway. So Keir Starmer is absolutely dreadful. If he says working people one more time, £22 billion on, I mean, he must have some sort of checkbox list of things he has to say.
It's back of his folder. I've seen him do it.
Oh, he does?
I'm convinced there's a page. I don't know 100% for sure.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Right, we're going to replay in just a second. Probably the most fiery moment of this 4-hour show was when I interviewed Shadow Justice Minister Kieran Mullen and asked him about the sentence of Lucy Connolly. Before we get to that, here's a voice note, a WhatsApp voice note, and this is from David on that very subject, on the subject of Lucy Connolly.
Morning, Kevin. Great show. Oh, your last two guests absolutely disgust me and I'm spitting feathers. Where is their outrage about a woman that writes a tweet getting 31 months? And then what about the Labour MP who's on video beating somebody and gets a suspended sentence? So yes, this is Keir Starmer, this is two-tier justice. Loving the show, David from Ireland.
Very good WhatsApp voice note there, David. Couldn't agree with you more. I mean, what is going on when the Tory opposition cannot find it in its heart to criticise the 31-month sentence for Lucy Connolly, the sentence that most of the nation is furious about, and the Tories can't even bring themselves to criticise the government about this or criticise the justice system about this. This, folks, ladies and gentlemen, is why the Tories are disappearing down the gurgler. They've forgotten how to be the opposition. But anyway, here is me trying to point that very matter out to Shadow Justice Minister Kieran Mullen about half an hour ago or so.
I think Lord Harewood set out the position quite effectively there. The Prime
You're
Minister
not going to buy into that rubbish as well, are you?
Well, I think it's clear that the Prime Minister has not had a personal involvement in any.
Come on! You're the opposition. Give it a go. Be the opposition.
Being an opposition is also about being credible and making sure that you're.
Yeah, well, I'm being credible. You're being incredible.
I don't think comparing.
You don't think there's anything unusual about what happened to all those suspects after the summer riots, amid the summer riots. You don't think there's anything unusual that while most suspects wait 2 years before they come to court, those guys and those women were all in court within about 2 days, sentenced in jail but within 5 days. You don't think there's anything unusual about that? You don't think the Prime Minister's got anything to do with that? You're supposed to be the opposition. Oppose!
As I said, our position is about being credible and not just opposing.
So you're fully in favour of what's happened to Lucy Connolly, are you? Are you in favour of what Lucy?
If you let me get a word in, you let me actually finish a sentence, I'll talk to you about the areas in which I understand why the public are concerned. Because I think what the public do rightly raise is the contrast. Because actually what we saw last week was the Labour Party, and this is Labour policy, and this is the Prime Minister, saying that at the same time they want to make it so that rapists, child abusers, killers get out of jail even earlier than they already do. And so I think that's when people then have a question about, well, where's the proportionality, where's the balance? I do understand why the judiciary, and I think this is the judiciary, not the government, why the judiciary, when there's a public order issue, when there's a risk of widespread disorder, when we're seeing hotels being attacked and other things like that, that they want to send a very clear message to the public in the short term that this has to stop. And that's a reasonable approach to take in the round. That doesn't mean that each and every case is going to be one that the public think, well, that's
let me get this straight, though, if I may, Kieran. The Tory party the Tory opposition party is right behind the 31-month sentence for Lucy Connolly and the fact that her appeal against the severity, the grotesque severity of that sentence failed. The Tory party is fully in favour of that, are they? Well, yes or no? Are you in favour of it?
I don't think anybody listening to what I've just said would have interpreted it as...
Well, what is your position? Are you in favour of Lucy Connolly's condition, her situation? Are you in favour of the 31-month sentence and the failure of her appeal? Where do the stories stand? Because if you are supporting that, I think our listeners will be very interested.
So I think what we understand.
Tell me what is your stance on Lucy Connolly, please?
Kevin, as much as you might want me to boil down complex issues into yes or no answers, I'm not going to do that. I've set out the clear understanding we have of why people feel there hasn't been proportionality when it comes to some of these cases. In Lucy's case,
Connolly, what is the Tory? Your leader, Kemi Badenoch, says that her sentence is grotesque and she should be released. What about you?
What Kemi said?
Kemi Badenoch said that. Are you contradicting your leader?
No, what Kemi said was, we understand why people are concerned about that case, and that particularly the decision not to allow her to have overnight visitation was particularly concerning, and that actually we pointed out that Lucy does have routes to appeal that to the prison governor, and actually what Kemi said is it is all about proportionality.
So you're all in favour of the sentence. The Tories support the 31 months for Lucy Connolly. Yep.
Well, as I said, it's about proportionality.
It's a yes or no.
It's not, I'm afraid. It's about proportionality. I understand why people are concerned.
How do you think this appearance is going for you, Kieran?
I think it's not
going very well, is it? It's not going very well, is it?
I'm not sure.
Honestly, you're so out of step with what the people of this country are thinking.
I'm not sure.
Look, I'm just saying, mate. I'm just saying, Kieran.
You seem not let them say very much.
You seem like a nice guy, but let me tell you, you don't really understand. You don't seem to understand the principles of opposition. Stop supporting Keir Starmer and start opposing him. It would really help.
You're just going to rant the whole way through. I think the benefit of an interview that listeners want to hear what other people have to say. If you want to stick to a monologue, please feel free to do that. But I think actually listeners want to hear different perspectives. I've been very clear. I absolutely understand the concerns around proportionality. I've given you really concrete examples of where we're opposing this Labour government with its plans to let out some of the worst offenders, rapists, child molesters. Let those people out earlier. We've been clear in our opposition to that.
I'm with you there, Kieran. Absolutely.
Individual cases there is a convention, I understand, where you have to be more reticent in looking at individual cases. I also think there has been some misrepresentation of what the case was originally about. There are, of course, restrictions on freedom of speech, whatever the platform, and we have always had, and America has restrictions on freedom of speech. You can't say whatever you want without consequence if that leads to violence and unrest, and those are reasonable laws to have in place. There's sometimes ones that are difficult to get the balance right on, and the judiciary will sometimes make mistakes in that regard.
The great Alex Phillips is in the studio. She's going to be taking you through until 1 a.m.
1 a.m.
1 a.m. It's going to be.
I
did, didn't I? It's going to be an extremely long show for 13 hours or whatever. No, 1 p.m. Seriously, I don't know if you picked up on that interview, but that was the Shadow Justice Minister, Tory Kieran Mullen, refusing to say that the Tory party's line was that her 31-month sentence is grotesque, wrong, disproportionate. Refusing to say that there's anything wrong with it at all. I don't even think he's listening to his own leader.
I cannot fathom anybody in this country who would look at that sentence, look at the post she put out in its fullness, look at her backstory, look at how she reacted after putting that post out, and think that jail time's even warranted. There's got to be something very wrong with anybody who thinks that's okay.
But we're getting this out. I had Lord Stephen Hayward on as well, and he was saying, and he's another Tory, saying, oh, well, these sentences, is Lucy Connolly's, had nothing to do with the Prime Minister. Yes, they were. Of course they were. I mean, I said to him, so you don't see any disparity